Hello, good morning. It is 7 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilf, good morning from me as well. Let's get to it.
Pressure is mounting on the government as the search for two prisoners mistakenly freed from jail continues, just weeks after a migrant sex offender was also released in error.
Police chiefs warn that crime will increase by as much as 6% as a result of a change in sentencing laws.
Prince William has handed out his Earthshot prize in Brazil as world leaders meet for the COP30 conference.
Also today, how young is too young for a phone? We're talking about a new possible solution to kids' use of social media.
And a special investigation into the amount of far-right rhetoric on the social media platform X. We'll tell you all about that later this hour.
A very good morning to you. Two men are still on the run this morning after they were mistakenly released from a South London prison. The men are Brahim Kadour Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian and registered sex offender, and 35-year-old William Smith. Both were released from HMP Wandsworth.
Now, it's been less than 2 weeks since another accidental release of a wrong prisoner. Hadush Kabatu, a migrant sex offender, was re-arrested after a 3-day manhunt after he was freed from a prison in Chelmsford. Well, Parliament is on a mini recess, but the government has been asked to can that so they can answer questions about why it happened.
Our national correspondent Tom Parmenter is outside Wandsworth Prison for us. Tom, for those that aren't up to speed on this, just clarify again when all of this happened, because am I right in saying one of them was released wrongly and it took 6 days before anyone realised?
Yeah, good morning. It's extraordinary, isn't it? It's hard to believe, really. And people clocking on for their shift here at Wandsworth today, and prisons across the country. What next, really, within our prison system? That is a question a lot of people will be asking. As you say, it took 6 days for the prison service here to notify the Metropolitan Police that this Algerian sex offender was on the run. Nobody's been able to give me a clear answer as to why there was that 6-day gap, but it's clearly put the police at a huge disadvantage at the start of a serious manhunt. He is Brahim Kadour Sharif. The other man, Billy Smith from Woking in Surrey, and Surrey police are looking urgently for him. He was in court on Monday, given a long prison sentence, 45 months for fraud offences. But instead of starting that sentence on Monday, he was let out of the gates here. I spent quite a few hours here last night, and we spoke to an inmate who had been just released, who gave us a snapshot of what he's been seeing inside Wandsworth Prison.
It's the employees, mate. They need to really look at the staff, and they really need to re-evaluate who they're employing into these places.
Because they're just, what, not experienced?
They're not experienced, they're young people.
You've just been released. How careful was the release process?
Not very careful. It's chaotic. It's mental in there, mate. There's people, they're releasing people, there's people going in, the workers are screaming at each other. It's crazy in there, mate.
Tom, this is just staggering, isn't it? And it does make you realise, I guess, how frequently this is happening. Wandsworth, where you are standing in front of, has had its share of issues in the past. What can you tell us about the reality of what's happening in our prisons?
Yeah, those numbers are on the rise of these mistakes that are being made. There's around 22 every month around the country of prisoners being released in these kinds of circumstances. Obviously, completely unacceptable. We've been hearing that from the government for some time now after a series of high-profile releases. And this isn't just politically toxic and hugely embarrassing for ministers and the government, but it actually has real-world consequences as well for the victims of these men who were let out and for the potential threat that might exist for the communities that they are now in. The problem is, of course, we don't know where these two latest men are.
Stuff as always, thanks so much. We'll be back out with Tom throughout the morning. Obviously, it is a live story, a developing story as they search for those two individuals. Sophie, also just tell our viewers why David Lammy's so much in the eye of the storm of this morning. He was doing PMQs yesterday because Starmer was away.
Yeah, he was doing Prime Minister's questions yesterday. He was asked 5 times by the Conservatives about whether or not it was true that another asylum seeker had been mistakenly released from prison, and he didn't say yes. Now, the guy here is not an asylum seeker, but he is here illegally, it should be said, because he overstayed his visa. And I think there will be pressure on the government as to why, I guess, they weren't a bit more transparent yesterday. But also the pressure as well comes, let's not forget, because this is 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, after the sex offender Hadush Kabato was mistakenly freed. David Lammy said that they would introduce the most stringent checks ever in the wake of that. 2 days after those checks were introduced, this then happened in Wandsworth, so an awful lot of questions to be asked.
He also let the issue get under his skin. I mean, he got quite spiky and angry about it, and I just, my takeaway from that watching yesterday was when the Prime Minister's away, as not just as Justice Secretary, which he is, as Deputy PM, it's an opportunity to shine, and today all the coverage is criticisms much more than it is praise of Lammy.
Yeah, it really is. And look, while the Labour government is dealing with those questions as well, there are also more questions being raised about what the Police Chiefs Council have had to say this morning too. There
are warnings that crime could surge by up to 6% if Number 10 goes ahead with plans to cut short prison sentences. Amanda's here to tell us all about this. Amanda, this has come from a sentencing review that a former Tory Justice Secretary brought about, and clearly there's so much pressure on the prisons. Generally, we've seen that snapshot, and this was the suggestion, one way to lower that pressure. The police are now quite an abnormal political kind of response to what they view the consequences of this would be?
Yeah, it's really unusual to hear the heads of the police criticising the government openly about a piece of policy in this way. And I think it really is a recognition of how worried they are about the prospect of many more criminals effectively being free to roam our streets and what that will mean for police resourcing. Now, as you say, this is something that's been introduced in response to prison overcrowding, but also a kind of recognition that really short sentences don't work that well. So basically, the government wants to scrap sentences of 12 months or less. And also release many more prisoners early from their sentences. And the police chiefs say they don't actually disagree with the principle of it. They just think it's being rushed through much too quickly, and they want much more recognition of the kind of extra strain this will place on their officers. They want more resources while kind of probation gets up and running to help rehabilitate these offenders. And the Ministry of Justice have kind of hit back quite firmly, saying they inherited this overcrowding situation, as we've heard them say many times before. They say they are trying to build more prison places, and they're investing £700 million in probation.
Amanda, can I just pick up on what you're just saying there? Because, look, you were talking about the Ministry of Justice's response to this. And, look, I think that there will be a number of people who think they're right. They have inherited this crisis in the prisons. But at what point is it a political problem for the government? Because the numbers are going up, right? 262 prisoners released in error in the 12 months to March 2025. That's a 120% increase from the year before. It's getting worse.
Yeah, I think it just shows the whole system is just a complete shambles at the moment, isn't it? It's at breaking point. You're having all these, more and more prisoners released accidentally. If you're going to see prisoners being released earlier, more crimes committed against people. I mean, the police saying up to 400,000 extra crimes in 1 year committed. I mean, that's just 6%. But still, I mean, you're going to have those hitting the headlines. And David Lammy clearly not able to answer those questions, not willing to get into it. MP's really angry about the fact he wasn't answering those questions, demanding he come back to the Commons to kind of answer and set the record straight. He didn't do that. Now they're on recess. I mean, it's a real mess.
There's so many statistics. Can you give me that one again, Sophie? 262.
262 released in error in the last year. The previous year it was 115, which is still, a lot. But it's getting worse and worse.
Yeah, this is an early release based on a strategy that everyone's thinking about. That's 262 released in error.
And my question, I guess, is I really want to know how many of those have been recalled as well.
Yeah, if it's 6 days before they even noticed this guy, I mean, how many others did they not realise?
Amanda, great stuff. Thanks so much for that. The only quick final thought I had there, Sophie, we talked often about how incredibly hard a job the new Home Secretary has.
Yeah.
I actually think she's escaped an even harder job. Yeah. And David Lammy, I wonder if some of what got to him yesterday wasn't the questions from the opposition, it's the job he's been given. Having been Foreign Secretary, being like, you've thrown me into an impossible job here now.
Yeah.
And this is he handled it badly, but it's a big demotion and it's a very difficult job to handle.
A lot of questions. Now, Prince William handed out a total of £5 million last night to the 5 winners of his Earthshot prize. So this is his passion project. It's in its 5th year, and the prizes are given to young people to try and help them come up with solutions to the climate crisis.
We really had to zoom out there. I don't know what happened there, but the close-up on me was looking too painful for people to focus on today, so we've gone out. Now, of course, this was all taking place in Brazil. We were talking to our Rhiannon Mills from there yesterday live with that amazing backdrop. There was some stars there as well. And here is Rhiannon's report from overnight.
This is what it's all been about for Prince William this week. His Earthshot Awards finally here. And yes, that is singers Shawn Mendes and Kylie Minogue. You want to get a global audience, and they are certainly going to deliver it. Kylie telling us she was happy to help out.
Oh, I'm really excited to see everyone. There's amazing people doing incredible things, so it's good to be here.
I won't let it turn into hate.
The ceremony is not done on a shoestring, with its big performances and 5 £1 million prizes being handed out to innovators and entrepreneurs helping to tackle some of the world's most pressing environmental problems. Sharing the stage with 4 young people from Brazil, it was the finalists that William wanted to be the stars of the night.
I understand that some might feel discouraged in these uncertain times. I understand that there is still so much to be done. But this is no time for complacency, and the optimism I felt in 2020 remains ardent today.
I suspect there probably is a sense of relief from William and his team that they've managed to get to this point in the week without his trip being derailed by any kind of scandal. Yes, Prince Harry has appeared in Canada, but the one thing they really wanted to avoid was any new revelations about his uncle Andrew. They haven't come, which has allowed them that space and peace to really focus on the issues that have mattered to them. That optimistic message and the sense of energy couldn't feel more needed right now, with the pessimism surrounding the UN's climate summit, COP30, due to start today, also in Brazil.
The way that I've always looked at COP and endeavours around climate is, yes, politicians have huge sways. They're setting the ground rules. But as the finalists here prove, they are not the only game in town.
William is set to go to COP, where he's due to speak on behalf of the King and the United Kingdom. Another part of that push to show him as a truly global leader, where other politicians and royals have let people down. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News in Rio.
And we're going to have more of the coverage from there. We're speaking to the chair of the Earthshot Prize and the former chair of COP back in Paris.
Yeah, this is Christiana Figueres, one of the key architects, as you said, is that Paris Agreement. Leaders, of course, meeting in Rio for COP. I mean, they're under a bit of pressure, aren't they, of course, because of Donald Trump's views on climate change. America have decided not to send anybody, which is quite a big move from them as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that the PM still goes, and a lot of countries actually no longer sending their head of government, so a big commitment to it, and obviously Prince William there too.
Now, the boss of the Israeli football team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, has spoken to Sky News and denounced what he calls falsehoods and hatred being shared about his team's supporters.
The match against Aston Villa is in Birmingham tonight, and Maccabi fans are still banned from attending. Over 700 officers are being deployed to police both the match and a pro-Palestinian protest near the stadium. We can talk more about this in just a moment, but first here's what Jack Angelides, the head of the Maccabi Haifa team, told Rob Harris.
We know we've got a long road ahead. There are elements in the club that they're not in line with our values, our morals, and we do expend a lot of energy and have been for many, many years in trying to eradicate that. But to malign thousands and thousands of good fans with the actions of a few, it's a dangerous game, because I think that's something that is not conducive to, toning down the incitement that's actually going on now. It's just it's manipulation to my mind.
Yeah, and a really great interview that Rob did there with Jack Angelidis, the head of Maccabi Haifa. And, you know, this initially was something that the government suggested they might try and get involved with to overturn. And then he came out and said, look, either way now, it's too late, it's too dangerous, we can't overturn this. And I think that's the central point for me is usually in football, if there is fans' trouble, there is a punishment on the club through the football authorities. That doesn't apply here, so it does therefore come across to most people as a sort of unilateral decision. And as he said very clearly that any club that tries to suggest they don't have issues is saying something untrue, and to try and malign thousands of good fans with the actions of few becomes a very dangerous game. And I thought his points there sounded very, very sensible.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, look, what club hasn't had issues with racism? Let's be frank. Let's call it what it is. But also bad behaviour as well. It's a difficult one for us in Villa as well. We saw, of course, a press conference with Unai Emery, and they were effectively just trying to keep the politics away from it. They want to concentrate on the football, but it does feel like that's becoming increasingly impossible.
Now, we are going to do some... bit of confusion there about what we were going to get onto. Right, we're going to talk about Elon Musk now. And he has been involved in an investigation that Sky News has done. Sky News has investigated whether Twitter, X, is disproportionately showing its users right-wing leaning content, and a vote tonight as well will decide whether he gets a new pay packet. So that was, in fact, we were teasing ahead. We're not doing the story, so I completely butchered all of that. Later, we have those two Elon Musk-related stories, and they're going to be excellent, and you should stay tuned for them.
I want to bring you a little bit of news now about a typhoon. This is the number of people who were killed in the Philippines by Typhoon Calmegi, and it's risen to at least 241. So pretty devastating typhoon there.
The country's president has declared a state of calamity. The storm will reach Vietnam by midday. Cordy Lynch is there for us, our Asia correspondent. She's in Bangkok and can bring us the latest, Cordy, of what we're fearing here.
Yeah, well, it is a pretty desperate situation. And look, the Philippines is one of those countries that endures a lot of natural disasters. It's hit by about 20 storms each year. There's lots of earthquakes too, lots of active volcanoes. But this one, Typhoon Calmegi, is the most deadly so far this year. As you say, the death toll has risen to 241, quite a big spike. Overnight, 2 million people have also been displaced. And among the dead, most of whom died due to drowning, are 6 service personnel from the armed forces who died actually trying to rescue people. One of the worst hit areas is Cebu. Now, this is a really busy tourist area, a real hub there. And we've seen these huge mudslides, lots of people looking to be rescued, going on the tops of their homes. Now, it has left the Philippines, but there's a lot of concern and a lot of anger there too. It follows back-to-back storms in the past few months, lots of protests over poor flooding defences as well. It is shifting to Vietnam, and it's actually picked up pace, winds of about 155 kilometres an hour, and the commercial capital, Ho Chi Minh, is braced there. And the Philippines isn't out of the woods either. After going through this very devastating typhoon, they are also braced next week for another possible cyclone. So this, quite a perilous moment for the region.
Cordelia, thank you very much indeed. Cordelia, there reporting from Bangkok. We'll bring you, of course, updates on that story as we get them in. Now, I just want to return to our top story today, which is the mistaken release of these two prisoners from Wandsworth. One person who is a sex offender, he was in the country illegally, and of course this comes just 2 days after the government was supposed to have introduced the toughest ever checks to stop this happening again. Well, we can talk now to the Justice Minister. Alex Davis-Jones is here. Thanks for coming in this morning. A really, really important story to talk about. Firstly, I just wondered, do you have any update at all on the manhunt, right? Because these two guys are now being searched for.
So the Met Police have put out a public appeal for the two individuals. They are urging anyone with information, if they spot them, to come forward and report that to the police. We're having active updates from the Met Police, but as of yet, no.
OK, because, of course, one of the guys had a 6-day head start on the police, of course. Now, look, we've spoken before. I know how much you care about violence about women and girls. And here you've got a sex offender just released from prison by mistake, and no one even realises for 6 days.
Look, I'm totally furious, and I share the anger and frustration that you, the public, will obviously feel at this. It's unacceptable. Any mistaken release from prison is unacceptable. That's why we are trying to get to the bottom of this. It's why we've tasked Damien Owens to do this rapid review to look at what happened. I can announce today that we're going to be bringing in a crack team of tech experts to help the prison service, these brilliant men and women working on the ground in the most really difficult of situations. They're still in a paper-based system in 2025, trying to do a brilliant job in really tough circumstances in a prison system that is in crisis. And it isn't acceptable, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. But we do need to take steps to address it.
What's the tech expert? What are they doing? What does that mean?
So what they're going to do is come in using some tech-facilitated capabilities, this really clever sort of new technology to try and help process the reams and reams and boxes of papers that our brilliant prison staff are having to work through every single day. So bringing them up to date.
So it's basically just like trying to get the system online, digitise it.
It's trying to digitise the system, but then also bringing in some checks and balances to try and help them when they are going through this mountain of paperwork. So by using the technology to try and figure this out, to stop the errors that we're seeing, such as individuals with the same surname or individuals with many aliases being released in error, just trying to get to grips with this, Kate, as an interim measure until we can properly identify the problems that Damien Owens will hopefully come forward and address, and until we can see the benefits of the measures we've been putting in place, like building new prisons, investing in our prison system, but that isn't going to happen overnight.
262 prisoners were let free by mistake in the last year. I mean, this blows my mind. This is happening all the time.
It's shocking, it's unacceptable, and any prisoner released in error is one too many. But I just want to sort of stress to the British public that we release prisoners every single day in this country routinely. That is meant to happen. At present, it's about a 0.2% error rate. At the height
262.
At the height of the last previous government, before they left office, it was 17 a month. That even one is unacceptable.
It's
but
going up.
It speaks to the issue in our prisons. It speaks to the issue in our prisons.
It's going up there as well, isn't it? Right? It's a 128% increase from the previous year.
It is.
Now, this is the other thing that gets me right. This has happened less than 2 weeks after Hadush Kabatu was released by mistake, another illegal immigrant, another sex offender. And then, in the wake of that, David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, said that Labour was then introducing the toughest checks we've ever had. 2 days after those checks were introduced, we've had another 2 people let free. What are these checks? They can't be fit for purpose, can they?
So what we're doing is we've got 3 new measures that we're introducing, and I recognise that this is totally unacceptable. We've called an urgent meeting of all of the governors in England and Wales today to bring them in, to talk to them exactly about how we can fix this on the ground.
What are the toughest checks we've ever had that allow these 2 people to be introduced, even though they're so tough?
We've got Damien Owens doing this rapid review to come and address this. But as you've said, this speaks to the problem we've got. These are reams and reams of paper that individuals are working through.
This is what I can't get my head. You said you're introducing these new tough checks, correct?
Yes.
And those were introduced before these guys were released by mistake?
Well, we know the details are still emerging as to when exactly these errors occurred. Again, this will be part of our rapid review. But what we need here is we've got to get to grips with the problem.
What are these tough checks that were supposed to be introduced?
So this is about working together, working with the governors, helping the extra staff, making sure that they feel supported, because they are working in a chronic...
To be honest.
But they didn't exist. They didn't exist previously. But what we're doing is...
Does it sound like they exist now, is what I mean?
We are bringing them in. We're working with the governors directly. We're bringing in these tech experts. But ultimately, this isn't going to be fixed overnight. We've got to build more prison places.
You understand what I'm saying about the timeline here? Yes. You can't stand up and say, we're introducing the toughest checks we've ever had, and then 2 days later, oh, yeah, another illegal immigrant sex offenders being released. That's appalling, isn't it?
Well, what we need to do is to get to grips with the issue, and that's what we're doing. That is what we're doing today. We're bringing in the governors, bringing in Dame Lynn Owens, making sure that we've got these tech experts helping our brilliant men and women in the prison service to get to grips with this. But ultimately, it isn't going to be fixed overnight. We've got to build more prison places. We've got to invest in our public services. 14 years of austerity have done us no favours. It's not just our NHS that's struggling out for more support. It's our prison service. It's our education. And we can't fix it overnight. But we can put in some interim measures to try and make this a better situation for the British public until we get to build these more prisons that we need.
David Lammy was asked 5 times at Prime Minister's questions yesterday about whether it was true a prisoner had been released by mistake. Why didn't he be transparent then?
So I think it's really important to note that there is a proper way of doing things here. Nobody wants to mislead the public. Nobody wants to misrepresent information, and facts matter, especially when we're talking about prisoner inadvertent releases and the details of which could be subject to a live police investigation. What's important to note is that as soon as all the facts were available and the immigration status of the individual was confirmed by the Home Office, a statement was made by the Deputy Prime Minister.
You can see, though, that it looks like you aren't being honest with the public when the Justice Secretary stands there and 5 times declines to say that it is true that someone has been released mistakenly from prison again. At one point, he told James Cartledge to get a grip.
What's important is that all the facts are established first, because we know in a world of social media, there's misinformation, disinformation, and anything could have happened. We needed to establish all of the facts in order to reassure the public and reassure victims who are at the heart of all this.
You knew
that what exactly had happened.
You knew at that point that 2 prisoners, including an illegal immigrant who's a sex offender, had been mistakenly released.
No, we didn't know all of those facts, and I think it's important to point that out.
What did you know at that point then?
We knew that there had been an issue at HMP at Wandsworth. The police were investigating and were due to be making a statement. The Home Office were trying to ascertain certain facts, and it's important that there is a proper way of doing things as to not mislead the public and as to not to inadvertently provide any mis or disinformation.
Why didn't you just say that then? Because when you say it like that, that sounds reasonable, but that's not what David Lammy did, is it?
We were waiting for all of the facts to be established.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Good to have you on the programme today. Well, that story, of course, is going to run and run, and the hunt continues to try and find those 2 men.
I mean, look, the first thing I'll say is Alex Davis-Jones is always very frank when she comes on, and she's not the most senior person in the department. She's sort of been put out with an impossible task today. That said, a crack tech team to solve this problem. We're not trying to build an AI supercomputer. It seems bizarre if you have these people being released from a prison. This is a physical thing that happens, and you're bringing in tech analysts. Honestly, I was sitting there with my jaw on the floor watching it, thinking. I imagine most people would. We're not trying to build a supercomputer.
I'm genuinely a little bit confused about the time frame as well, about the tough checks that they said were introduced on the back of Hadoush Kabati being mistakenly released. What were those checks? When were they released? Why does it seem that 2 days later more people were released? Lots of questions.
We've spoken about this part before as well, which is of all of the sort of things they inherited, legitimately to say the prison service was in crisis, that they absolutely did. But what's difficult is when you said, as you said a few weeks ago, we have solved this problem, we have brought in these checks, this will not happen again. When you come on 2 weeks later and say something akin to that, it falls flat, because you've tried to make the argument before and it hasn't worked.
There's going to be a lot coming up, of course, on this story as well. We're also going to be hearing from a BAFTA-nominated filmmaker who used to be an inmate at Wandsworth Prison. What is going on at Wandsworth Prison? I'm going to try and find out.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Ridge and Frost, a reminder of the headlines.
Two men are still on the run this morning after they were mistakenly released from a South London prison. The men are Brahman Kudur Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian and a registered sex offender, and 35-year-old William Smith. Both were released from HMP Wandsworth.
Police are preparing for a surge in crime of up to 6% in 1 year if the government's plans to overhaul prison sentences go ahead. The proposals under the sentencing bill will attempt to ease overcrowding in jails.
And the boss of Israeli football team Maccabi Tel Aviv has denounced what he calls falsehoods being shared about the team's fans. Speaking to Sky News, Jack Angelides revealed the club has not been given a specific reason for Birmingham authorities banning their fans from tomorrow's Europa League match with Aston Villa. But he did accept there is work to do to eradicate racism in the fan base.
Prince William has praised environmental innovators as the world's true action heroes in a speech for his Earthshot Prize in Rio de Janeiro. In the annual ceremony, the future king said there's no time for complacency.
Now, two men are still on the run this morning after they were released from prison in Wandsworth by mistake. Now, it's not the first time the South London prison has made headlines for the wrong reasons.
In 2023, Daniel Khalifi sparked a 75-hour manhunt after he escaped the jail on the underside of a food delivery truck. You might remember that story. One former Labour Home Affairs advisor has said Wandsworth has been facing huge issues as a result of staff shortages.
Now we can talk to Chris Atkins. He was an inmate at Wandsworth. He's an author as well. It's great to have you here, I should say. Look, Wandsworth is one of those places where it's almost become synonymous with the issues on the prison estate. What was your experience when you were there?
I mean, it was like a dystopian Fawlty Towers is the best way I can describe it, because you've got so few officers and so many prisoners there. It was just running riot like most days. There was complete lack of control. It was easier to buy drugs inside the prison than it was on the outside. They were so short-staffed that they kept asking prisoners like me to help them run the place. So I had about 10 different jobs. One of them was taking the register. So I was ticking prisoners' names on and off a list as they entered and left the wing. Now, I'd been prosecuted for a very high-profile crime of dishonesty, and they're allowing me to do basically a security job within the jail. So it was completely lawless.
When were you there? What was the years that it was like that?
I like to think I was there at peak Wandsworth. So I was there almost at the very height of the prison crisis of 2016. 2017. So I was there for 9 months, and this is all in my book, A Bit of a Stretch. So I saw it all. It was carnage. And you were just thinking all the time, this is making prisoners worse. People are coming in with a lot of problems, mental health problems, drug addictions, and all of those issues are getting worse. They're then released onto the streets with no rehabilitation whatsoever. So they go and commit crime all over again.
It's absolutely staggering, honestly, to hear you talk about it like this way, because look, we hear about the statistics, we know about the overcrowding, we know about the lack of officers, experienced officers leaving, all that kind of thing. But to talk about the reality, so let me get this straight. You were in charge of just ticking people on and off, like doing the register in the prison. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's... What's going on?
For weeks, I was doing that. I mean, they were kind of begging us to help them. You know, I was middle class, I had a degree, I probably wasn't going to muck about. So they got me doing all sorts of jobs. within the prison. Look, it was great for me. It got me out of my cell. And that's the other problem. So many prisoners are stuck in their cells for 23 hours a day. You know, they're not getting rehabilitated. They're not doing courses. They're just sitting staring at four walls. And that increases the problem of violence. You talk about staffing. I mean, my God, some of the kids that they were hiring to be prison officers, I mean, a lot of them had barely started shaving. They're given 10 or 12 weeks training and a set of keys and thrust onto a wing with 200 very dangerous and vulnerable prisoners. And they were like rabbits in the headlights, these kids. They were absolutely terrified. Some of them would come up to me and say to me, you know, what time do we open the prisoners for lunch? Like they wouldn't know how the regime worked. They'd last a few weeks, and then you'd never see them again, only to be replaced by another kid that you know, had chosen to be in the prison service rather than work at Curry's. I mean, it's terrifying.
How had you wanted to escape, or had you wanted to game the system and when there was a release day for other prisoners, switch the paperwork so that you were released instead of them? Would you have been able to do that easily? Would it have been very difficult? What's your view on that?
I mean, look, the incentives to release for me were low because I had a young family, and you know, most prisoners who jump the fence in one way, shape, or form are picked up again very, very quickly, and with time added to their sentence. So look, there was no compulsion for me to do it. But this sort of thing happened all the time. People either getting out deliberately or just being released by accident. I mean, that's the crazy thing with most of these people. It's $250 a year. You don't need to be some great Houdini to get out. You just got to wait for them to get the paperwork wrong, and out you go. And a lot of problems this comes from is a lack of technology in prisons. So one of the things I was really shocked about was seeing how much was administered by paper. So officers all their time were there with a pen and paper, filling in forms. A lot of them were the old carbon copies, you know, with yellow, pink, and red, or whatever, different copies that all had to be filled in, all filed in different places. And a lot of the time, you know, this paperwork went straight in the bin. And a lot of these accidental releases come from people not reading other people's handwriting. So, you know, 9 gets confused for 6, or a year gets confused for a month. And that's how the system gets all these bugs in it, and people are just released by accident. So you don't need to be a great prison breaker. You just wait for them to open the door on the wrong day.
That's extraordinary. You mentioned there about violence in prison, and you talked a bit about how it was easier to get drugs in prison than on the outside. Can you just explain how that is? Like, what kind of things did you see or witness or hear about in prison?
Well, look, when I first got there, I was absolutely terrified. There was shouts and screams. It's the noise that overwhelms you, you know, because a lot of these people have severe mental health problems. They're not master criminals. They're just people who've been failed by the health system or failed by the education system and wash up in prison. Far, far few officers who are trained to deal with that kind of violence, and you know, just people attacking each other, people attacking the officers. You get a lot, especially in these big London prisons. A lot of people who go inside belong in street gangs, and so all those beefs and vendettas that are going on the gangs on the streets just get transferred inside. So a lot of the problems are gang related. But to be honest with you, it happened so much. I saw so much of it. I became completely desensitized to it. So after I was there a few months, I could walk down a landing with a full-scale fight going in front of me. And I just try and make sure that I didn't spill my tea. I'll be completely honest with you. And that's not good. It's like an ambulance driver. You get completely desensitized to trauma. But it was happening. And, you know, I do feel very sorry for the officers, because the officers aren't equipped to deal with this, and they're kind of overwhelmed by it, and they see horrible violence and trauma on a daily basis, which means a lot of the officers get very severe mental health problems, and then a lot of them don't turn up to work because they're calling in sick, and then you get even more problems because prisons are being run with like sometimes half the number of officers that are needed.
Thank you so much. It's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you. What an eye-opener. I should probably say, if you look at Wandsworth Prison, it's improved a bit in the latest report. They've got a new governor, but certainly a crisis for a long time. A lot of people have been calling on that particular prison to be shut down as well.
Chris Atkins, there, really thank you to him for sharing that story. Maybe tech is central to improving this. That paperwork point was really...
Yeah, it's really important.
Really interesting. Now, you may have noticed more right-wing or even extreme content on your X feed recently. If so, you're not alone.
Now, it's something our data and forensics team have been looking at, and it's from the time since Elon Musk bought the site. Now, in a moment, Tom Cheshire is going to be taking us through some of their findings, but first, we just wanted to give you a bit of a flavour of what's happening.
We're losing identity of our country. Somebody needs to stand up and fight for it.
We just want to protect our community and our country. You'll have Elon Musk say, well, he's a champion of free speech. I just don't buy that.
In the past, we've done a lot better on Twitter, but it has really gone down.
The huge crowds in Westminster didn't turn out just for Tommy Robinson. They were also chanting someone else's name. Elon Musk joining in from America, one of the most influential and controversial figures in global tech, business and politics.
Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die.
Musk's speech at the rally was live-streamed on X, his social media platform, an alternative universe of posts and identities. A platform he's been using to attack British politicians and to pass judgment on issues affecting the UK, especially immigration and grooming or rape gangs. Those posts have earned hundreds of thousands of likes and interactions. Musk bought Twitter in 2022 in order to wipe out what he described as the woke mind virus influencing Western politics.
If you open the app on your phone and you immediately see a news agenda, maybe filled with more hate towards certain groups, it's going to have an impact.
He renamed it X, he got rid of the content moderation teams, and he promised to turn it into a free speech platform. So you'd probably expect to see a lot more right-leaning content as a result of all of that. But how do you actually measure that? Well, it's been impossible for a whole host of reasons for a long time. That is, until now.
Well, our data and forensics correspondent Tom Cheshire is here with us. And Tom, it's a really amazing piece of work, and I suggest people check out the full stuff on the website because it's really worth digging into. Can you just clarify for us, because I think this is really important in this, what kind of definitions have we used for things like hate speech or right wing versus left wing and that sort of area?
Yeah, I mean, and that's really important because that's at the heart of this, and it is also, can be controversial. This is not an idea of censorship, it's an idea of description and understanding what's going on. So when it comes to hateful content, we work with outside experts as well at the Oxford Institute and the Centre for Countering Digital Hate. And there we're looking at accounts that more than 5% of their content uses violent language, extreme language, conspiracy theories, or they've got an affiliation with a far left or a far right group. Because that isn't a political judgment, it's on both sides of the political spectrum. And then when it comes to the right wing versus the left wing, this is where we work with this AI tool, the LLM, and we sort of give it all these accounts, 90,000 tweets in total. We let it go through and then we go and manually check a proportional sample of that. So do our journalists agree with that categorization as left or right? And that's more along the party political spectrum.
I find this really, really interesting. You obviously set up these new accounts who had no backstory at all, right? So it's hard, and this was what they were finding through those. But also, I guess there's an issue too about where if the algorithms know people's predispositions and they start reinforcing what people are seeing. I mean, I've heard from people who are like, for example, like fans of like watching football videos or whatever, and then they start getting Tommy Robinson material, for example, on X.
Yeah, and it happens really quickly as well. What we noticed is the first few days, these are all new accounts, box fresh, so they shouldn't really have any sort of inclination. Well, they do have inclinations because some of them are left-wing, some of the right-wing, some of the neutral. But it's amazing, even the neutral ones get fed a lot more right-wing content. So this is the question. There's no value judgment here. It's what does the platform look like? And it's not just an absence of left-wing voices who might have left the platform when Musk took it over. This is the algorithm really boosting that, especially in the early days, pointing people down particular rabbit holes. And that's what I don't think we've been able to show before. We might have had inklings of it, but this is a really rigorous sort of academic study.
I have a couple of big thoughts as you're talking. The first is obviously this does relate just to the For You tab, because X has this option obviously where you can just choose who you follow and go on the For You tab as where they are pushing you the content. So I guess that is also worth noting. I can continue to just follow you guys, or I can go into the For You tab. And that's also where part of this I could say, are we that surprised? I mean, don't we know that different platforms, different models have slightly different biases, and this might have shifted, and you can choose to just follow who you follow, or you can choose to be led by the algorithm.
Yeah, I think there's two things there. First of all, the For You versus following. The following is still sorted. We haven't actually looked at that. The For You tab is the one you land on first. If you're a new user and if you don't switch over to the following tab, that's how you're going to experience X. So that felt, especially when talking about new users, that's the right place for that to be. And second, in terms of different networks having different biases, I think you can almost compare it to, Elon Musk buying Twitter, as it was called then, to eradicate the woke mind virus. Not dissimilar from any oligarch of the past buying a newspaper to put their views. I think the difference is X tries to present itself as sort of a digital town square, a neutral platform. And we might be fine saying, look, this is going to be a right-wing platform, but it's not presented that way. And I don't think there's perhaps understanding. The algorithm sort of, as soon as we say the word algorithm, it sort of conjures up images of impartiality, there's someone deciding. Actually, if the algorithm has that bias, I think it's important to understand it.
Yeah, and you might see different things on different platforms as well. Like Blue Sky, for example, has come under fire for doing the same from a more left-wing perspective as well. You can find Tom's full report, I should say, on the app. It's also on that QR code on your screen right now as well. It's a really, really interesting deep dive, I should say. If you're interested in this stuff, well worth checking out.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have an interview with Eddie Marsan, the actor.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from the UK?
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr. Walker, you're anti-abortion, but 2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents, based in Washington, D.C.
David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism? I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro,
I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a fourth indictment?
Hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford, and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Again, now the actor, Eddie Marsden, has said he's fed up with seeing posh boys play gangsters. He told Sky News he wants the industry to do more to get working-class stars on screen. We can talk about this a bit more with our arts and entertainment correspondent, Katie Spencer, who's here. This sounds like a really interesting chat. What did he say?
Yeah, look, I was speaking to him because he'd gone back to the acting school where he'd been training. Mountview is celebrating its 80th anniversary. He's just been named as a vice president there. But it was a real sort of chat about him reflecting on his career and how far he's come. And the real thing that he was saying to me was the fact that he looks around nowadays and there are so few actors from working class backgrounds that surround him. And it's true, within the last sort of decade, we have slid into a position really where the amount of of actors from privileged backgrounds is just entirely out of whack with real life.
It's getting worse, isn't it? So I was looking at some data on this recently, actually, and it is getting more elitist, right?
Yeah, I think it's around 7% of people are privately educated, aren't they? But if you look at the leading actors that are working today, it's about 40% of them went to a fee-paying school. And nobody is saying the likes of Benedict Cumberbatch or Eddie Redmayne aren't brilliantly talented actors, but there is something fundamentally wrong with the industry that it is so out of whack with the rest of the country. And that's what Eddie told me, and he actually believes that the problem is only getting worse.
If you want to be an actor in this country and you come from a disadvantaged background, you have to be exceptional to have a hope of a career. If you come from a privileged background, you can be mediocre. There's been a fashion that it's been posh boys. It's even now to the point where even like gangster movies now, 30, 40 years ago, you would have The Long Good Friday, you would have Get Carter, where people like Michael Caine or Bob Hoskins, who were real working class actors, were playing those parts. Now you have posh boys playing working class characters.
And Katie, one of the statistics, and you have this in your write-up online, which snapshots how this has gotten. You know, most of these things we talk about, the progress is slow. As Sophie said, the progress has gone backwards. Your article says that 8% of British actors came from working class backgrounds in 2024, compared to 20% in the 70s and 80s. So obviously that is wrong, and it's going backwards. The one thing I do find interesting when we're talking about acting and the job of pretending to be somebody else is whether the solution is to say you have to be the type of character that you're playing, or whether it needs actually a broader industry point of, in 10 years, we need these statistics to be better, but not to prescribe so specifically that you have to be this type of person to play this type of person.
Yeah, I think that is something certainly nowadays that the industry is struggling to wrap its head around. I mean, Eddie Redmayne has spoken about the fact that he played a trans character a few years ago, didn't he? And he now regrets the fact that that role didn't go to an actual trans actor. But I think, look, in terms of working class representation, of course, actors, you're acting, you're playing a role. You can, of course, play somebody further or above or beyond below your class. But the point is, I mean, if the chances aren't there for working class actors to even be there in the first place, you think about the fact that even to go to an audition, if you're called at the last minute and you're coming from Manchester down to London and it's £100 just to get on the train to go and audition, you just don't stand a chance of even getting in the room in the first place to get that role. And that's the main point, that the industry needs to be thinking about how it invites people into the room in the first place.
Yeah, really interesting. Thanks so much, Katie. Now, we're talking about a really important issue next. It's about smartphones, it's about social media and teenagers and children. And it's a huge issue that affects so many families. We're going to be talking to Justine Roberts, who is the CEO of Mumsnet, because Justine is launching something really interesting. It is a phone that is designed just for kids, the other phone, right? Great to have you on, Justine. Talk to us about what you're doing.
Yeah, well, we have, over the years, seen on Mumsnet that parents are extremely anxious about this sort of idea of the first phone for kids. So they know the dangers. They actually, 77% of our users think that it's impossible to keep your kids safe online, completely safe. And yet life demands really that kids have these devices, and you need them to travel, you need them for schoolwork, and of course you need them for your social life. So parents are in this big bind. And the software that's on offer currently from, the big phone companies is just not adequate. Only a third say that it's effective. So we decided to kind of stop hand-wringing about it and go out there and build a partnership to make the sort of safest phone on the market that puts parents completely in control. So we've designed a phone with our partners at Nothing, who are these incredibly cool UK phone makers, and our partners at Safety Mode, who use AI software to filter the content that appears on these phones to put parents really back in control. So what this phone allows you to do is be the parent who decides what apps are on this phone. So you can have social media apps or you can not have social media apps, but if you do have them, then there's an AI safety layer that flags and blocks harmful content. So really a very different type of phone that has all this software built into it. You don't have to download it, you don't have to try and negotiate it. And we have tested it on thousands of kids and they cannot get around it. That's the key point. The parents can use it, they can be in control, they know how to use it. The kids can't get around it.
Justin, just quickly, because forgive me, we're kind of close to time. Did you have to build this in a fight against the existing phone manufacturers, or did they help you with the process?
We went and found a phone manufacturer, Nothing, who make these incredibly. They make the according to the reviews, the best, cheapest phone on the market already, a UK manufacturer, and we partnered with them. I think it's extraordinary that there isn't a phone on the market. Where there is such a need amongst parents, and by the way, kids who know that they're in this sort of hamster wheel of being kept addicted and online by big tech. So it's extraordinary it hasn't happened. So it wasn't happening. It isn't out there. So we decided to do it ourselves.
Justine, it's been great to have you on the programme. As you say, I agree, to be honest. I think it's extraordinary that this hasn't happened before, because you'd think that it is something that both kids and parents really want. Great to have you on the show. Busy programme, got more to come. Busy programme, lots still to come in the next hour. We're going to be speaking on that big story of the day, those early prison releases, with more guests, Robert Jenrick, Michael Gove, amongst others, and more on that X investigation.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
We're Sophy and Wilf. Good morning from both of us. Right, let's get to it.
Pressure mounting on the government as the search for two prisoners mistakenly freed from jail continues, just weeks after a migrant sex offender was also released in error.
Prince William has handed out his Earthshot prize in Brazil as world leaders meet for the COP30 conference.
Also ahead, the former Justice Secretary Michael Gove will be here. We'll get his thoughts on the government's early prisoner release plans.
And we've also got a special investigation into the amount of far-right rhetoric on the social media platform X. We're going to be talking about that later in the hour. Good morning and welcome. Now, a manhunt for two prisoners who were mistakenly released is still happening this morning. The men are Brahim Kudur Sharif, who is a 24-year-old Algerian and a registered sex offender, and the 35-year-old William Smith. Now, both men were released from Wandsworth Prison in South London.
In the last hour, the Justice Minister, Alex Davis-Jones, told this programme that the prison system's in crisis and a rapid review is underway to get to the bottom of how it happened.
But look, this isn't the first time something like this has gone on. It's less than 2 weeks since another accidental release of a wrong prisoner. Hadush Kabatu, a migrant sex offender, was rearrested after a 3-day manhunt after he was freed from prison in Chelmsford. Now, Parliament's on a mini recess, but the government has been asked to can that so they can answer question on what's going on.
I'm totally furious, and I share the anger and frustration that you, the public, will obviously feel at this. It's unacceptable. Any mistaken release from prison is unacceptable. That's why we are trying to get to the bottom of this. It's why we've tasked Dame Lynn Owens to do this rapid review to look at what happened. I can announce today that we're going to be bringing in a crack team of tech experts to help the prison service, these brilliant men and women working on the ground in the most really difficult of situations. They're still in a paper-based system in 2025, trying to do a brilliant job in really tough circumstances in a prison system that is in crisis. And it isn't acceptable, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. But we do need to take steps to address it.
Well, our national correspondent Tom Parmenter is outside Wandsworth Prison. Tom, again, I mean, we've been going through these details, but I think it is worth going through them again of when exactly this all happened. How it happened, I guess we're still waiting to find out. But the timeline, because for 6 days, the government, the prison service, weren't aware that someone was wrongly released.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks in the prison service in this country have been a complete mess, and it has real-world consequences. I've still not been able to get a clear answer as to why it took 6 days for the prison authorities at this jail to tell the Metropolitan Police that the Algerian sex offender was at large. He went missing on the 29th of October, just a few days after the last embarrassing episode surrounding the Ethiopian sex offender Hadush Kabatu. Well, the Algerian is 24 years old. He was due to be deported because he'd overstayed his visa. He is Brahim Kudur Sharif, and it is just something that beggars belief. And once we'd reported that yesterday lunchtime, it emerged that there was another manhunt underway, again centred on a prisoner from Wandsworth jail. And it is a convicted fraudster who on Monday of this week was sentenced to 45 months in prison. This is Billy Smith, who has links to Woking in Surrey, and he, in a mix-up between the courts and the prison, was accidentally released on the day he should have been starting his sentence. It is pretty remarkable what is going on at the moment, and last night I spent quite a bit of time here at the prison gates, and I spoke to an inmate who had just walked out legitimately. He'd been released properly, but he'd spent a short time inside and told me of some of the chaos that he's seen.
It's the employees, mate. They need to really look at the staff, and they really need to reevaluate who they're employing into these places.
Because they're just, what, not experienced?
They're not experienced, they're young people.
You've just been released. How careful was the release process?
Not very careful. It's chaotic. It's mental in there, mate. There's people, they're releasing people, there's people going in, the workers are screaming at each other. It's crazy in there, mate.
Absolutely staggering
that
stuff,
is
isn't it?
Tom, thanks so much for that.
Sorry.
That was obviously someone Tom spoke to last night. We also just want to play a clip of Chris Atkins, who joined us last hour. He was talking about his experience. This dated back to when he was in jail in 2016, 2017, I think is when he said it was.
Officers all their time were there with a pen and paper, filling in forms. A lot of them were the old carbon copies, you know, with yellow, pink, and red, or whatever, different copies that all had to be filled in, all filed in different places. And a lot of the time, you know, this paperwork went straight in the bin. And a lot of these accidental releases come from people not reading other people's handwriting. So, you know, 9 gets confused for a 6, or a year gets confused for a month. And that's how the system gets all these bugs in it, and people are just released by accident. You don't need to be a great prison breaker. You just wait for them to open the door on the wrong day.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? And I think, you know, the question that I've been asking here the last few weeks is, like, how on earth has this happened and continues to happen? And I think, you know, listening to Chris Atkins there, you get a bit of a sense of exactly how it's happening. It's just, you know, administrative error all the time.
Yeah, extraordinary details of the story, and that colour we got was really interesting. We're going to get more to come. We've got Robert Jenrick and Michael Gove coming up later on in the programme. Now, some of the city's biggest start-up companies, including Revolut, have sent a letter to the Chancellor over fears about what she might do in the budget. And it comes after Rachel Reeves made a speech on Monday where she didn't rule out tax rises. Well, our city editor, Mark Kleiman, back with a scoop, as always, for us. Mark, what have you got here?
Yeah, it's interesting, Wilfred. We're in that phase before the budget now where industry groups, trade associations are lobbying furiously to avoid being hit by punitive tax measures with the budget now just 3 weeks away. So, in a sense, what I'm about to say is not that surprising. But what I've got is a letter from a group of about 15 founders of some of the UK's most prized and valuable startups, companies like, as you say, Revolut, a company called Quantexa, which is involved in financial crime detection, Oak North, a big challenger bank worth billions of pounds. And these founders have basically written to Rachel Reeves yesterday to say that measures that have been speculated on in recent weeks, such as the imposition of an exit tax and also recent changes to capital gains tax and inheritance tax rules, are risking undermining the UK's attractiveness as a place to found and grow a business. But also, importantly, Wilfred, in this letter, they say that if she proceeds with some of these measures which have been highlighted in recent weeks, then it could force these founders to cancel their plans to float their companies on the London Stock Exchange. Now, in one sense, that's not especially material. It doesn't generate huge amounts of money for the UK to have them float their companies here, but it's an important element of the UK's prestige and London's prestige as a financial centre globally, that these homegrown companies are not automatically going and floating themselves either in New York or Amsterdam, that they see the London Stock Exchange as an attractive place to base and list their businesses. So the letter itself talks about the fact that potential changes to the fiscal environment could stand to make the UK less attractive to existing and potential founders, which will result in reduced investment in UK startups. And just one further point, Rachel Reeves has assiduously courted these companies in recent months. She's been hosting regular roundtables at number 11 Downing Street to try and trumpet the government's role in promoting London as a global financial centre. So this warning from this group of people feels particularly pointed today.
Mark, great stuff as always. Thanks so much, Mark Kleiman.
Now, the boss of the Israeli football team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, has spoken to Sky News and denounced what he calls falsehoods and hatred being shared about the team's supporters.
The match against Aston Villa in Birmingham tonight, and Maccabi fans are still banned from attending. Over 700 officers are being deployed to police both the match and pro-Palestinian protests near the stadium. Jack Angelides has been speaking to our sports correspondent, Rob Harris.
We know we've got a long road ahead. There are elements in the club that they're not in line with our values, our morals, and we do expend a lot of energy and have been for many, many years in trying to eradicate that. But to malign thousands and thousands of good fans with the actions of a few, it's a dangerous game, because I think that's something that is not conducive to toning down the incitement that's actually going on now. It's just it's manipulation to my mind.
Yeah, a lot of attention around that game later today, of course. Now, Prince William has handed out a total of £5 million last night to the 5 winners of his Earthshot prize. William's passion project is in its 5th year. The prizes are given to young people to try and help them develop solutions to the climate crisis. No pressure.
The event in Rio de Janeiro was star-studded, hosted by Kylie Minogue, but attended by our star, Rhiannon Mills. Here's her report.
This is what it's all been about for Prince William this week. His Earthshot Awards finally here. And yes, that is singers Shawn Mendes and Kylie Minogue. You want to get a global audience, and they are certainly going to deliver it. Kylie telling us she was happy to help out.
Oh, I'm really excited to see everyone. There's amazing people doing incredible things, so it's good to be here. Let it turn into hate.
The ceremony is not done on a shoestring, with its big performances and 5 £1 million prizes being handed out to innovators and entrepreneurs helping to tackle some of the world's most pressing environmental problems. Sharing the stage with 4 young people from Brazil, it was the finalists that William wanted to be the stars of the night.
I understand that some might feel discouraged in these uncertain times. I understand that there is still so much to be done. But this is no time for complacency, and the optimism I felt in 2020 remains ardent today.
I suspect there probably is a sense of relief from William and his team that they've managed to get to this point in the week without his trip being derailed by any kind of scandal. Yes, Prince Harry has appeared in Canada, but the one thing they really wanted to avoid was any new revelations about his uncle Andrew. They haven't come, which has allowed them that space and peace to really focus on the issues that have mattered to them. That optimistic message and the sense of energy couldn't feel more needed right now, with the pessimism surrounding the UN's climate summit, COP30, due to start today, also in Brazil.
The way that I've always looked at COP and endeavours around climate is, yes, politicians have huge sways. They're setting the ground rules. But as the finalists here prove, they are not the only game in town.
William is set to go to COP, where he's due to speak on behalf of the King and the United Kingdom. Another part of that push to show him as a truly global leader, where other politicians and royals have let people down. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News in Rio.
And we're talking driving next and gender stereotyping too, because we've got some new research that perhaps surprisingly, perhaps unsurprisingly to some, shows male drivers are more confident than women on the roads, but they're also responsible for the majority of serious accidents.
Well, the statistics in this report were quite striking, but they just don't apply to me.
Is this the confidence of the male driver again?
It might well be. And do you know what? I wanted to make that joke very quickly, but then it's not really something to joke about, and one has to be... This makes me be more careful, yes. Genuinely, because the stats, read that out.
Yes, so these are the Department for Transport figures for 2024, and they show that men accounted for 76% of UK road deaths. So look, it is actually really serious. And that is a huge disparity. And yet, at the same time, this study found that 86% of male drivers feel safe behind the wheel, despite that. So,
well, I can't defend my gender in light of that statistics, which is very, very, very striking. And I think, jokes aside, safety first, and be careful on it. It's annoying, though.
Good advice, Will. Now, you might have noticed more and more right-wing or even extreme content on your X feed recently. If so, you're not alone. It's something our data and forensics team have been looking at. It's from the time Elon Musk bought the site, and Tom Cheshire is here.
Hi guys,
with your very, very cool screen.
It is. Let's see if it works, because this is a really complicated, rigorous study. And what we did, we set up fake accounts on Twitter, box-fresh accounts, to see how the algorithm treats it. So they're following left-wing. We had left-wing accounts, we had centrist accounts, we had right-wing accounts. And then we started looking at the content they were serving. Across the board, 62% of the content they served was right-wing. So this is just across the board. You can break it down by those left-leaning accounts as well. So if we think we're going to be looking at yellow versus pink versus the grey and non-partisan, and when we break that down a bit further, we look at the left accounts, and you can see this is what, if you're a left-wing ex-user, if we created them, this is what you see. There's a fair chunk of right-wing content. There's also left-aligned. If we look at what right-wing users see, though, you see a lot of a bigger focus, this pink content, huge amount of right-wing content, very little left-wing content. And then finally, we had these non-partisan. So these are accounts we designed to be non-political, not have any political interest, follow things like football accounts, entertainment, things like that. This is what they saw. Again, a lot more right-wing content. So that's showing us how the algorithm works, what it actually pushes towards people, rather than, say, just looking at the number of voices. This is stuff that is actually getting boosted rather than anything else. And then we can break it down a bit further. This is extreme versus non-extreme language. So when we're talking about extreme versus non-extreme, extreme language is things that sort of have dehumanizing language, calls for violence, conspiracy theories, things like that. And you can see there was a pretty even split. But when it comes to where it's coming from, left-wing users, it's nearly a third of that extreme language coming from them. Right-wing users, I'll get aware of that number. That's a huge, huge number. So that's where the sort of things are coming from. This has been months of looking at this stuff. This isn't just taking a snapshot. We've worked with an AI tool, lots of researchers outside Sky to understand exactly how this algorithm is going. And I think this is sort of empirical evidence for something that people might have felt for a while, but we're actually sort of see show up in our results.
I mean, it's such a great report, and the graphics are really helpful to see, and there's more of them on the Sky News website. I think it comes back to me to a central kind of question, which is, are we that surprised by the results? And if we did the same sort of survey either 30 years ago across certain newspapers or even today on other social media platforms, might we get the same in the other direction slightly? And maybe it is surprising to some, but perhaps not to all.
Yeah, I think it's unsurprising in some ways, though. When Elon Musk took over Twitter, as it was called, he said he wanted to eradicate the woke mind virus of progressive politics. And so that's been part of his mission. But a lot of that was sort of reinstating accounts, right? So he put Tommy Robinson back on the platform. But it's not just about that. It's about the algorithm actually pushing stuff, even if you're not following a Tommy Robinson of the world. And I think your point about newspapers is a really, really good one, because, it's always been, you buy this for influence. Elon Musk says the reason Donald Trump is president is because he bought X. It's a really good return on investment for that. But I think the difference with the newspaper, you have comment pages, and it's the editorial view. It's very obvious what the politics are, and you choose your newspaper as a result of that. And we might be fine with social networks being the same, but it's not necessarily presented the same way. It's presented more as a neutral space, when actually the algorithm isn't being necessarily impartial.
I've got lots more questions on this. Are you able to come back again next hour? Are we doing this again?
We're here all day long.
Because there's so many areas to pick up. I think it's just such a great investigation. Thanks so much, Tom.
So just tell me about something that's happening late in the programme that I am quite excited about. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, is going to be here, but she's not going to be talking about politics. Shock horror.
Instead, she'll be painting a very different picture today, a completely different framing, all to be revealed.
Can't deal with the puns.
I love a cheap pun. So I didn't write those, by the way.
I love it.
They're too good for me. I like them a lot. Right, she was the woman at the heart of the Paris Climate Accord 10 years ago. We're not still talking about Beth. We're talking about the environmentalist Christiana Figueres, who's determined to make this year's conference in Rio a success.
A lot's changed in the last decade, and look, progress has been pretty slow, but she did tell us that decisions about prioritising spending on net zero versus things like defence and health are not binary.
We started by asking her what she makes of Prince William's involvement with the Earthshot Prize and COP.
I think one could expect that a Prince of Wales might have to do some things because of his investiture. But the fact is that Prince William is 100% sincere, committed, and devoted to using his very unique platform for common good, for restoring the planet. He has been doing this for years. I have had the honor of chairing the Earthshot Prize for 5 years, ever since it started. And I did so because of his commitment. I wouldn't actually spend some of my time, in fact, a lot of my time on Earthshot Prize if I personally were not convinced that he is truly devoted.
Can I talk a little bit more generally about the fight against climate change? Because you, of course, were You know, we're kind of architect to the Paris Agreement. We've got COP30, which is marking 10 years since that agreement was met. I'm going to be kind of straight. It feels, I think, to many people that, you know, progress is stalling, that you have these big meetings where global leaders pat each other on the back, but nothing actually changes. What is your view? How optimistic or not are you?
I think what is important to understand is that the center of gravity of where progress is happening is shifting. 10 years ago, when we were in Paris, it was very obvious that it was the national governments that needed to be in the lead because they had to agree to a legally binding agreement that provides for the strategic route of decarbonization of the entire world over the next few decades. So they had to be in the lead. That was necessary then. That is no longer necessary now. National governments have done the leadership role that they needed to do. The center of gravity, of action, of progress, of possibility, and of opportunity has now shifted to the rest of stakeholders. That is why at COP30...
Have they done the leadership? President Trump's called climate change a con job.
I know it is actually very sad when the head of state of some government doesn't understand or deny science. I mean, what can I say? If you can deny gravity if you wish, but it still acts on you.
I have a different follow-up to your point to say that national governments have already done most of the heavy lifting, which is to ask you whether you think it would be understandable for a government like the UK to look at the significant progress that has been made around carbon emissions in this country and think, do you know what, the finances are tight, there's lots of things we have to spend on, from defence to health services, with a sort of flatlining economy, and we're going to just push back the date to when we will be genuinely net zero, or not be so tied to a set target. If that happened, would that be reasonable or understandable in your eyes?
Well, that is, unfortunately, I think, the consequence of thinking in a binary way, that you either have to do, let me pick up health because you mentioned it, either you have to invest in health or in climate change. The fact is that these two are so intricately linked, and we should really understand that. The more that we decrease pollution, for example, the better human and health is, especially in cities, is going to be. So we should not think of these two things as competing and as being mutually exclusive, but actually mutually supportive.
Is COP really, I guess, worth anything, you know, if the US isn't there, isn't interested, isn't listening?
Well, the fact is that the COP will continue. The United States is the only country that has left. Everyone else is still in the Paris Agreement and continues to decarbonize their economy in different ways, for sure, but they continue the path. If the United States chooses to leave the effort and to curtail the opportunity for their own industry to decarbonize and be competitive in the new economy that is rising irreversibly and unstoppably, then that is to their detriment.
Lots more coming up on that story, of course, COP. We were wearing different clothes, by the way, because we recorded that yesterday. If you're wondering, we haven't just magically had a wardrobe change. Now, the Collins Dictionary Word of the Year has been revealed. It's actually 2 words, so I don't know if there's a bit of a job description there as well. I've never heard of it before. Wilf, have you ever heard of this word, vibe coding?
Well, not until this morning.
Yeah.
This is about doing some coding, development that turns natural language into computer code using AI. So
it basically says it all, doesn't it? That it's a kind of AI word, right?
Yeah, and there's people kind of going... So I love some of the runners-up, actually.
Yeah.
More than the winner, vibe coding. And I think in the last week, we've been doing a lot of aura farming.
Yes, aura farming. What's this?
Building up a cool online profile.
I can't deal with this.
We haven't really successfully.
Aura farming. So what is an aura farm? It's like a kind of farming your aura online?
Yeah, just trying to build up that cool profile so you get, I guess, continually build followers. Which, actually, we picked up a few followers, but I don't think it's been down to to the aura farming
The
success.
deliberate cultivation of a distinctive online personality there. We've got one more as well. What's this one? Biohacking.
I don't know I didn't have this one in my notes, so
Here
let's
we
find
go.
out. The activity of altering the natural processes of one's body in an attempt to improve health. Well, does that just mean being healthy?
I have no idea. Sorry, I've got no idea
There we
on
go.
that one.
Anyway, so that made it in. We've got a few others in here. So glazed, this is to give excess and often sincere praise to someone, basically sucking up, which, you know, is something that we all do from time to time if we have to. And Henry, have you heard this one? This is actually an acronym. High earner, not rich yet. So it's basically someone who has a decent income, but they just spend it all and they don't save it.
My favourite one, this is the only one that I actually knew before, is 6'7". This is Dictionary.com releasing their word of the year. It's not even a word, obviously, 6'7". It's basically meaningless as far as I can tell.
I read into this one quite extensively and I still don't understand what it is.
So it is kids and teenagers basically laughing at older people like us because they've got no idea what they're doing when they say 6'7". It's tracing back to a rapper's song from 2024 called Doot Doot 6'7". And also, apparently, it started appearing in TikTok videos of basketball players, including an NBA star who stands at 6'7".
And despite that very long and accurate description, I still don't really understand it.
I think that's the point.
That's the point. There we go. Anyway, we are going to take a very quick break here and we shall reveal what we were referring to earlier about Beth. And she'll be joining us with a very special guest just shortly.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, welcome back. We've got some more news for you this morning, of course, because 2 men are still on the run this morning after they were mistakenly released from a South London prison. The men are Brahim Kadur Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian, and a registered sex offender, and 35-year-old William Smith, both released from Wandsworth prison.
The boss of Israeli football team Maccabi Tel Aviv has denounced what he calls falsehoods being shared about the team's fans. He was speaking to our Rob Harris and said that the club hadn't been given a specific reason for Birmingham authorities banning the supporters from tonight's Europa League match with Aston Villa.
Prince William has praised environmental innovators as the world's true action heroes. It's a speech for his Earthshot prize in Rio. The future king said that there's no time for complacency on climate change.
Now, you might be used to seeing our political editor, Beth Rigby, grilling politicians in Westminster or reporting from outside Downing Street. But last night, she swapped the Commons for a canvas.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Beth.
Hello.
This is your home for the next 4 hours.
I know. I'm going to relax.
Are you?
No, probably not. I'm going to feel very anxious. I don't have my phone and I don't know what's going on in the news.
Well, this is it. News is your business. Is that the Beth that you want them to capture?
The Beth face here is my television face in the sense that my hair's done and my lipstick's on. When I'm not doing television, I'm a very down-to-earth, just normal person in my joggers at home.
Now, we asked you to bring along an item that meant
Yes.
something to you.
I've brought my pen and pad. My pen is from my brother, and I always have a notepad on me.
Look at you being scrutinised already.
Oh my.
Well, Beth, here we've also got Stephen Mangan, who's the actor and presenter, a Portrait Artist of the Year as well. I can see you two having a little giggle together. What's your reaction about?
Well, it's just the thought of Beth sitting still for 4 hours is funny to start with. You were quite anxious about being separated from your phone and being away from the news, because news was happening and you didn't know what was going on in the world.
Yeah, it was. We're laughing because the first hour. So in my head, I sat still for about 10 hours at least. But then when I rewatched the show last night, I realised it was actually only 4 hours.
It's quite a long time, though.
Yeah, the first hour, there were different stages of the emotion. The first hour was acute anxiety. By the end of it, I was like, oh, I could sit in this studio forever. This is the nicest show. Everyone's lovely. I'm having a lovely time. Just move me off to Sky Arts. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'll just work with Stephen.
And you were like, gosh, we all should be separated from our phones more often. But look, just set this up for us, Stephen, quickly, because this is a very successful series for Sky Arts. Portrait Artist of the Year. You just told me this is the 12th season.
12th season, yeah.
And just talk those people who haven't watched it, just quickly set up the show for us.
Well, there are 9 artists each show, 3 celebrities. Last night we had Beth, we had Gabby Logan, and we had Shane Lynch from Boyzone. So 3 artists paint each celebrity, and 1 is picked to go through to the semi-final. There's a semi-final and a final, and this year the finalist gets to paint Hannah Fry for the Royal Society. So it's a big deal. But we had a very unusual night last night, because often they will pick one painting of one sitter and one painting of another sitter. But last night, all 3 paintings chosen to be in the final 3 were of Beth.
Well, no way.
Yeah.
Were they actually? 3 Beth Rigbys and 1 final. It's everyone's nightmare, isn't it? 3 Beth Rigby.
It's definitely a
a
politician's nightmare to have 3 Beth Rigbys grilling you. But let's have a look. Can we have a look at these are fantastic. And you had to sit, Beth, for 4 hours.
Yes. I did that.
Talk us about this one. So this was one of the 3 winning ones?
3, well, there's 3 shortlisted, and then 1 is picked as a winner. So they just, to make it easier, they put 9 down to 3.
That was Uthman.
And is that your favourite one, or you're not?
No, you picked one to take home with you.
I get to pick one to take home with me.
Where is it now?
It's waiting to go to be framed because I haven't had time to do it.
Right.
Well, hold on. What happens to the other ones? We need 1 in Osterley and 1 in the studio here.
Yeah. And that's Talia at the end. She did the sort of side profile, and then Emma in the middle. So that's Uthman's. And they were amazing. The artists were amazing.
Well, I was about to ask about this. I mean, obviously, 4 hours to sit still is tough for any of us, but to produce something like that in 4 hours is unbelievable talent. Unbelievable.
They are incredible, aren't they, Stephen?
Yeah.
The artists.
Yeah, under such pressure as well, with cameras and people talking to them and me interviewing the whole time, asking them how they're feeling, how you feeling now. Beth interviewing them as well, obviously.
Oh, no. What nightmare.
Well, it's very interesting. You learn a lot about the celebrities, because some sit down and then go into a sort of a glaze and then wake up 4 hours later, or some read a book. But Beth was chatting to them.
I want to know about this. This is getting to the good stuff now, right?
Yeah.
Because you've obviously done a few of these, so you've seen loads of celebrities coming through. And what I want to know is how did Beth compare? What was she like?
Fantastic, because she was curious about every single person. I mean, some people don't even learn the names of the artists.
Yeah,
they just sort of come in, introduce,
Go on,
sit
give us a
down.
name, like who? Who's
I'm not saying who.
Although, I mean, I want to touch on this quickly, Beth, because 12's very successful series. Obviously, Gabby Logan and Shane Lynch there last time, but Tom Jones, Graham Norton, Mary Berry, Rory Stewart. It's a great honour to have been involved in this.
It was a great honour. I honestly, it was the nicest day in television I've ever had, and that is no lie. It was really enjoyable.
On Downing Street?
Well,
Wasn't that good,
that is very enjoyable, but that is hard work, isn't it? This was not that hard work. I mean, it's really not like, you know, when you're on. I didn't have to do anything. I just sat there.
Yeah.
And at first it was a bit uncomfortable because I was like, what do I talk to everyone? What do I do? And then you all just get into a zone. And then also Stephen is absolutely lovely, obviously. And Stephen and I were both running the marathon, weren't we? Because it was filmed earlier in the year, so we chatted about that, and you really put me at ease. It was.
Yes, and we saw each other after the marathon as well. We were both still just about walking.
Well, you were kind of. You were just strutting about. I mean, you were triumphing that marathon.
Stephen, do you have artistic skills yourself?
Oh, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. I'm absolutely hopeless. I'm absolutely hopeless, which is why, to me, it's just magic.
It is magic, isn't it? The creativity it's like someone that can write music or paint. I mean, there are very few things. It's just genuine talent, creativity.
Yeah. And what's great about the show, I think, is that you don't lose any of it at watching at home. You see what we see.
Yeah.
So it's not like someone's eating not to mention any other shows, but it's not like someone eating a bun and they have to tell you what it tastes like.
Yeah, you can see it.
You see the process unfiltered.
And actually, there's an audience as well, so it's really organic because everyone's wandering around and looking at the paintings. So, but actually, Stephen has got some talent. Here we go.
I was going to ask about this because this is
just a little.
In all seriousness, this is one of my kind of bugbears about reading, right? And I worry genuinely about a drop-off in people reading and in kids reading and all that kind of stuff as well. But you've got a Christmas book.
Yeah, this is my 8th book for children. I've got 3 boys myself. I know what a struggle it is.
It's hard
to get them off screens
really
because
hard.
The screens are so clever and, you know, they're everywhere. iPads, phones, TV. I got such pleasure as a child reading. I almost had my head in a book. I loved it. And you kind of want your children to have that pleasure too. So, obviously, I'm not going to solve this problem single-handedly, but I write books. My sister, who does have some artistic talent, illustrates them.
Illustrates them, doesn't
she? So she does the drawing. And I get a huge kick out of it. I mean, books, anyone who's written a book will tell you how hard it is to write a book. It takes a long, long time. And for us actors who are used to quick gratification.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that you haven't done the illustrations based on what you said about your talents.
If I did the illustration, my sister wrote it, I think we wouldn't be sitting here.
You wouldn't be sitting, but there we go. So Barry Saves Christmas is out. And Beth, before we let you go, just a quick final thought on this ongoing unfolding prisons crisis for the government.
We've got to get you some work now.
I didn't know I had to prep for politics this week.
I have a feeling it's going to come straight back to you in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, look, another accidental release of prisoners. I mean, it's a massive crisis for them now, isn't it? And Lammy is under serious pressure over what he said in the Commons yesterday. What did he know? Did he mislead the House? I mean, it's a huge story, and it feels like day in, day out, the government just cannot get on the front foot at the moment. You've had all of the announcements earlier in the week about, presaging potential tax rises in the budget, and then you have another couple of prisoners accidentally released. It's difficult times, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And thanks. It's really nice to talk to you about stuff that isn't politics as well, and it's great to have you on the programme as well. I'm going to be getting that one. That's going to be on my one of my Christmas shopping lists, I think, definitely.
And Portrait Art of the Sea is available, I would imagine, on demand on the Sky platform.
It's demand. You don't. Yeah.
There we go. Well worth checking out, and all of the old series as well. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from the UK?
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but 2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C. David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism? I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah, back up.
Mr. Navarro, can
Well, I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a 4th indictment? Is it a draw?
Hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
I'm Stephen Murphy and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back. 2 inmates remain on the run this morning after they were mistakenly released from Wandsworth Prison.
And it comes after the Justice Secretary David Lammy promised to put in place extra checks to stop things like this happening after the migrant sex offender Hidush Kabati was also mistakenly released.
Former Justice Secretary Michael Gove has joined us. A very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
The scale of problems that we see like this, is it fair to hold your hands up and say this was a largely inherited problem?
I don't think it's a largely inherited problem, but I think we do have to be honest that there have been problems with the prison system for quite some time. The number of people who've been released by accident has peaked, or rather risen rapidly in the last year or so. I think the previous Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, recognised that there was a problem in our prison system that needed to be addressed by the targeted early release of some offenders. And I think while that's a fraught process, it was the right one. But inevitably, that's given rise to questions about how effectively the prison system can manage this operation. And as we've seen, we've moved from a system where 50 prisoners or so were released by mistake every year, every one of them, of course, an error, to one where it's now more than 250. And part of the challenge for David Lammy is he may be able to point to some of the difficulties he's inherited, but he's in charge now. And his management of the situation over the last 24, 36 hours doesn't really command the confidence that ideally we'd all like to see in the criminal justice system.
You say there that David Lammy's management doesn't command the confidence that you want to see. I just wondered if you could expand a bit more on that. Do you think that Shabana Mahmood had more of a grip on it than David Lammy then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I certainly think that Shabana Mahmood was an effective Justice Secretary who inherited a difficult situation. There is no criticism of her immediate predecessor, Alex Chalk, who worked very hard in order to try to bring to the attention of other ministers across government just how difficult the situation in the prison system was. But she showed political courage in recognising that we needed to have a targeted early release system. That's never easy, but I think it was justified in this case in order to say, look, We're clearing away some of the problems that we found on coming to office, and we will now fix things. And we're now 15, 16 months in, and there will be an expectation that the current Justice Secretary will be bearing down on the system in order to ensure that we don't have situations like this. And additionally, even when there are problems, and I think this is the particular difficulty that David Lammy faces, then acknowledge them. Early on in my time, when I was Education Secretary, I made a horrible mess of getting rid of a previous school building programme. The policy was right, and I had inherited a difficult situation from the previous government, but the presentation on my part was terrible. Mm-hmm. I then came back to the House of Commons to apologise, and it wasn't easy, but actually, I think in our political system, people will recognise if you're relatively new in a post and you say, look, I've screwed up, or I need to level with the House of Commons, then people will give you that opportunity to put things right.
I wanted to just quickly follow up on this, because there's been a debate about whether tech can solve this issue. If it is the case that this is still pen and paper to decide this prisoner's got to be released or not, firstly, that's mad in the day and age we live in. Secondly, that does suggest this is on the past government, because tech has been around for a long time.
Yes.
I mean, how is that possible that's still the case?
Well, that is just one aspect of the way in which our entire prison system needs fundamental reform and change, because the use of pen and paper, the use of fax machines,
fax machines, exactly. It's extraordinary.
Is an indication. It's also true, but to a lesser extent, in our NHS as well. But in our prison system, what we've had is a situation where, for too long now, we've been operating at very close to full capacity. And that means that sometimes, if a prisoner is threatened in one jail, they have to be moved to another. It means that you've got lots of people in our prisons who are on remand. They've been charged with an offence, they may be dangerous, but they haven't yet been found guilty. And what we're doing is perpetually managing crisis, rather than using prisons effectively to rehabilitate. And this is just one manifestation of that.
Were you frustrated when you were in government about this? Because
yes.
You're a reformer, right? You know, we saw with education, you had spent a bit of time in justice, and then you were kind of moved on, probably, I think it's fair to say, before you could really do any meaningful reform. I mean, you must have had your head in your hands.
Yes, and again, to be fair, George Osborne, when he was Chancellor in the period after the 2015 general election, allocated a significant amount of money for new prison building, and we had a prison reform programme.
Yeah, but you also stripped away loads of experienced prison officers, right, those years, which you know, the prison officers I've spoken to say that that's had a huge impact.
There was a significant reduction in the very early years in the coalition in investment overall, but that investment was rising after 2015. George Osborne and David Cameron recognised there was a change. But then after I was evicted, and indeed George Osborne and David Cameron were evicted, there was a shift away from fundamental reform towards broadly crisis management for a couple of years. Then subsequently, particularly when Alex Chalk was Justice Secretary, there was a focus once more on reform, but by that stage, time was running out for the Conservatives. And that's why I think there is, there's an opportunity for David Lammy here. It may not seem like it when people are wondering why on earth he spent his Wednesday morning worrying about a new suit rather than worrying about released offenders, but there is an opportunity for him to say, the system does need fundamental reform and change, and part of that will be making sure that we concentrate on reforming what happens to offenders in jail, and part of that will mean, yes, accepting early release, but early release on terms that the system controls.
Michael, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Very good to see Lord Gove, the former Justice and Education Secretary, and many other significant roles in government. We have a great guest coming up at 9:30. James Vanderbilt is the director and producer of a fantastic new film called Nuremberg. Let's have a taste of what's to come later.
Dr. Kelly, you are standing inside a military prison. It currently houses what's left of the Nazi high command. Your job is to evaluate Goering and the others.
Sir, this might be a little bit beyond my area of expertise. Doctor, no man has ever beaten me. Very sure of yourself.
That was a little taste of that Rami Malek, Russell Crowe movie that is out very soon, and we're going to be talking to the writer and producer of that at 9:30.
Now, today the Bank of England is going to be releasing its forecast for inflation, economic growth and unemployment, so a kind of bumper set of figures.
Tasty, tasty data coming out later. The Monetary Policy Committee will also announce their latest interest rate decision. They're expected to hold it at 4% but it's actually in play whether there is going to be a cut or not. Ed Conway's here to break it all down for us. Ed, very good morning to you.
Morning to you.
So usually when we go into these meetings, there's not much jeopardy. It's like we know they're going to hold, or we know they're going to cut, or there's a high likelihood. This one's really in play. What are people?
I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. Sophie's not. But
I'll tell you why, because you're going to get more excited.
Interest rates make, it's not just for you geeks. It has an impact on how much money people are paying for all sorts of things, on budgets, on it's on everything. Right?
There we go.
It's not just us geeks, but I mean, for me. So I'm about to go into the Bank of England. We go to this kind of lock-in where we get all of the data and we get the decision. So I will have that number.
So that is exciting.
That decision 2 hours before you guys do. But obviously we're kind of in a darkened room somewhere in the bowels of the bank, so we didn't get to release it. But yeah, I don't maybe kind of 1 in 4 chance they'll actually cut this time around. That's kind of what markets think at the moment. Shall I show you just kind of where we are at the moment? Because so interest rates. This is where interest rates are at the moment, so 4%. They've come down a fair bit from that 5.25% that they were at at the kind of peak. And they are expected to kind of go down in the coming months, but not necessarily this time around. So definitely kind of on the way down. But also you'll notice the kind of key thing is maybe where they settle might well be a lot higher than where they were for a long time. So, are we just in this kind of new world of higher interest rates for just the long run? And the background to all of that, as you all know, I mean, look at that chart. That's interest rates. Now look at the chart for inflation. And it's kind of, a similar thing for inflation. So this is UK inflation, OK? And it went up, it peaked at kind of, getting towards double digits. And the key thing I think the bank has to kind of answer is, why is UK inflation the highest in the G7? Why do we have higher inflation than everywhere else? And so we're going to get that from the bank. We're going to get new forecasts as well on economic growth. And that's kind of interesting as well, because remember that we are in the run-up now to a budget. So whatever the bank says about economic growth might well be kind of borne out by what the Chancellor has to do with her growth forecasts. So there's a lot going on. But I think the main story today, I'm coming back to the desk, the main story today is probably more about, how do they think the economy is doing right now, rather than we're going to cut interest rates. And it's very difficult to start cutting interest rates, or to kind of carry on doing it really quickly when inflation's much higher than everywhere else.
I guess that's my main question on this is, if we look at this chart, and not to push you away from the desk again, Ed, but the inflation rate that is, as you say, higher than a lot of the G7 is basically 4%. It's just below that. It's like 3.8%. The target is 2%. So it is odd that we're even debating whether they are going to cut today, or your first chart saying if it's not today, it'll be in the next meeting, because we're well above what the target is. We're above where the target is.
The target's 2%. The bank says, it's going to get down to 2%. So what they're doing is they're trying to kind of, to aim off into the distance. But that's an imprecise science, and I think the difficulty for them is that, they thought that inflation was going to be lower at this point, and they didn't realise that we were going to be the highest in the G7. And add on to that the fact that when you've got the highest inflation, anywhere, that also feeds into the interest costs that the government is paying, which makes life more difficult for Rachel Reeves as well. So you see how these two things kind of come together. Everyone would like inflation to be lower. The cost of living crisis still feels like a reality for, if you're out there, if you're buying stuff, if you're kind of looking at the prices in shops, it still feels expensive right now. Yeah. And it feels like it's getting more expensive. And I think it's going to be interesting. So I've got a chance to talk to the governor. And so we'll be asking him those questions, for people out there. When can they really feel that this cost of living crisis really is over? Because it doesn't feel like it's over for a lot of people.
It's absolutely it, and that's why we have these kind of numbers on a screen, but actually this is the biggest thing. It's the real world consequences on people's lives when they go to the shops, how much they're paying on the mortgage, all that kind of thing. It's also going to have big consequences for the Chancellor, right? Because we are now in kind of proper budget run-up period, and all of this data feeds into Rachel Reeves' spreadsheets as well, right? Well, what's she going to be hoping for?
She's going to be watching this as well. And I guess, to some extent, hoping the Bank of England's kind of pointing towards the economy doing better. Part of the difficult thing for her, so the extent to which she has to potentially raise taxes or cut spending in the coming years depends on how well her forecasters, the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, how well they think the economy is going to do in the future. And the short answer is productivity is just weaker. It has been weaker. Can I show you one chart quickly, or are we out of time?
Always.
Productivity.
What time's your chart said?
Productivity. This is growth rather than productivity.
We're being told it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. So just look at this. That's where the economy looked like it was heading before the financial crisis. That line going up and up and up. I mean, you can make a question about whether it really was going to kind of go that much higher. But this is where it actually went. The higher this line is, the richer we all are as a nation. So we kind of disappointed. And the key thing is, after the financial crisis, we got wealthier, but nowhere near to the extent that we might have been had that line continued. And then COVID came along, and then kind of the same thing happened again. So you can see that where we are, and that line is just showing you how well off we are as a nation, where we are now is really shy of where we might have been if had those lines continued, and had we not had the financial crisis and had we not had the pandemic. And that is something the Bank of England might be talking a little bit about today. And that is the thing that lies behind the fact that Rachel Reeves might have this big downgrade in her budget, and then as a result might have to raise taxes. So although this stuff seems abstract, that is what feeds into whether she's going to have to raise income taxes for all of us. And so it all kind of comes together.
So 23%, when obviously this is over the course of a very long period of time, but that is a drastically large amount.
That is us getting less well off compared with other nations around the world.
Yeah, but it's not a percent either side. I mean, it's almost impossible to kind of to quantify the scale of that. Ed, as always, a real pleasure. So you're off.
I'm off into the lock-in.
Bank of England. It's like.
One day they may invite you.
I'd like to come.
Yeah.
I might sort of scupper your route there one day and show up as you.
It's quite cool. You're so far. You're by the vaults in the bottom of the Bank of England.
I should just say,
pick up a piece of gold.
You can hear the tubes running by.
I should just say, these guys are basically about to crash off air, talking about the Bank of England lock-on, which I think says it all right.
This is what I was
we'll
saying
see you in just a moment.
Mate, nice one. Thanks very much.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, it is 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Rich and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilf, good morning from me as well. Let's get to it.
Pressure mounts on the government as the search for two prisoners mistakenly freed from jail continues. Just weeks after a migrant sex offender was also released by mistake. We'll be joined by the Shadow Justice Secretary.
The city raises the alarm over the budget later this month. Some of the country's biggest startups write to the Chancellor over fears of what she might do.
The boss of Maccabi Tel Aviv tells Sky News he denounces what he calls falsehoods being shared about the team's fans. The big match is tonight.
Prince William has handed out his Earthshot prize in Brazil as world leaders meet for the COP30 conference.
Also ahead, a special investigation into the amount of far-right rhetoric on the social media platform X. We'll be talking about that later in the hour.
Plus,
you're standing inside a military prison. It currently houses what's left of the Nazi high command.
we talked to the director and producer of Nuremberg, a new film starring Russell Crowe tracing the Nazis on trial for their crimes. A very good morning to you. Two prisoners remain on the run this morning after they were mistakenly released from prison. The men are Brahim Kaddour Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian and registered sex offender, and 35-year-old William Smith. Both were released from HMP Wandsworth in South London.
Well, earlier, the Justice Minister, Alex Davis-Jones, told us that the prison system is in crisis and they're trying to get to the bottom of how it happened.
It's shocking, it's unacceptable, and any prisoner released in error is one too many. But I just want to sort of stress to the British public that we release prisoners every single day in this country routinely. That is meant to happen. At present, it's about a 0.2% error rate. At the height
262.
At the height of the last previous government, before they left office, it was 17 a month. Look, even one is unacceptable.
It's
but
going up.
It speaks to the issue in our prisons. It speaks to the issue in our prisons.
It's going up there as well, isn't it? Right? It's a 128% increase from the previous year. What are the toughest checks we've ever had that allow these two people to be introduced, even though they're so tough?
We've got Damien Owens doing this rapid review to come and address this. But as you've said, this speaks to the problem we've got. These are reams and reams of paper that individuals are working through. This is what I can't get my head. You said you're introducing these new tough checks, correct? Yes.
And those were introduced before these guys were released by mistake?
Well, we know what the details are still emerging as to when exactly these errors occurred. Again, this will be part of our rapid review.
Well, lots of questions still to come. Our national correspondent, Tom Parmenter, is outside Wandsworth Prison for us today. Tom, no update on the manhunt as yet, I don't think, but lots of questions about what's going on in our prisons.
I've spoken to the two police forces leading those manhunts, and both tell me that they are ongoing this morning. An extraordinary situation to be in. Over the last couple of weeks in the prison service, we've just seen release after release of prisoners by mistake. There's around 22 every month across the country of these kinds of mistakes. The numbers are up, but they are acutely embarrassing for the government and for the prison service. In relation to the ones here at Wandsworth, there was a 6-day gap between an Algerian sex offender being released on the 29th of October and the Metropolitan Police then being informed of the fact that he was missing. And so he is at large. He's had a 6-day head start on the police, which I'm sure is a source of frustration for them, having to now pick up this manhunt. And the second case is that of William Smith, known by the name of Billy. He has links to Woking in Surrey, and Surrey police are leading on that particular manhunt. That was a mix-up between the courts and the prison. He was sentenced to 45 months inside on Monday, but instead of starting that sentence, he was released from Wandsworth Prison in error. It is extraordinary, really, what's going on at the moment. It's a sign of a service in crisis. There is a meeting between the governors today, an urgent meeting convened by the government to try to get a grip on what is happening within these prisons. And yes, they are politically toxic and embarrassing for the ministers, not least the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, but they are also incidents that have real-world consequences for the victims of these men who are then released in error, and also the communities which they are now in. The problem, of course, is we don't know which those communities are because we don't know where they are in the country.
Tom, thanks so much for that. Much appreciated, as always. We want to bring you a little taste of what life is like in a prison like the one behind Tom there, because earlier in the programme we spoke to Chris Atkins. He was reflecting on his time in Wandsworth Prison. This was back in 2016-17.
Officers all their time were there with a pen and paper, filling in forms. A lot of them were the old carbon copies, you know, with yellow, pink and red or whatever, different copies that all had to be filled in, all filed in different places. And a lot of the time, you know, this paperwork went straight in the bin. And a lot of these accidental releases come from people not reading other people's handwriting. So, you know, a 9 gets confused for a 6, or a year gets confused for a month. And that's how the system gets all these bugs in it, and people are just released by accident. You don't need to be a great prison breaker. You just wait for them to open the door on the wrong day.
Do you know what's crazy about this, Sophie? Is I think it really highlights, in a very tangible way for us, the scale of the problem. But it also does highlight how long it's been going on for and how long it's been building. And I think this is one of the problems that you'd have to say the government inherited. A terrible mess. But you'd also have to say after yesterday that the new Justice Secretary, David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, has made it much worse than it needs to be on himself politically.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting hearing Chris Atkins talking from Wandsworth, which really illustrates the wider problem in a microcosm, because Wandsworth has been having appalling inspections for a long time, and actually they've got a new governor, and the latest one was much better than it has been previously. But that doesn't completely absolve this government, right? I mean, the thing that, I was trying to get through to in the interview with Alex Davis-Jones, I don't understand how they said that they introduced those checks. We don't really know exactly what those checks were, the most stringent checks, and then 2 days later it seems that these 2 other prisoners were released. And as you say, lots of questions about David Lammy, Prime Minister's questions as well. Yeah,
it doesn't fill people with confidence when you say, we've got these stringent checks and similar problems arise. Again, we're going to talk more about that in a moment with Robert Jenrick. Now, the boss of Israeli football team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, has spoken to Sky News and denounced what he calls falsehoods and hatred being shared about the team's supporters.
So they're playing Aston Villa in Birmingham tonight, and Maccabi fans are still banned from attending. Over 700 officers are being deployed to police both the match but also a pro-Palestine protest that's happening near the stadium. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris has been talking to Jack Angelidis.
We know we've got a long road ahead. There are elements in the club that they're not in line with our values, our morals, and we do expend a lot of energy and have been for many, many years in trying to eradicate that. But to malign thousands and thousands of good fans with the actions of a few, it's a dangerous game, because I think that's something that is not conducive to, toning down the incitement that's actually going on now. It's just it's manipulation to my mind.
It's a really great interview by Rob Harris, well worth referring to the full thing. It's obviously an issue that's had a lot of coverage over the last couple of weeks, and the government kind of were going to try and get involved and overturn the local decision, but the Maccabi CEO said that it wasn't worth doing that at that late stage, and obviously hopefully everything goes off peacefully tonight. Yeah, we're going to be talking later on the programme about the Ministry of Defence's latest £5.5 billion project. It's the new Ajax tank. Our very own Deborah Haynes has been taking one for a test ride so she can try and work out if this programme, which I'll be honest has come under fire a little bit, has finally got it right. And Prince William has handed out a total of £5 million last night to the 5 winners of his Earthshot Prize, William's passion project. It's in its 5th year. And the prizes are given to young people to fund the development of solutions to the climate crisis. So it was a star-studded event in Rio de Janeiro. It was hosted by Kylie Minogue, and Raina Mills was there for us.
This is what it's all been about for Prince William this week. His Earthshot Awards finally here. And yes, that is singers Shawn Mendes and Kylie Minogue. You want to get a global audience, and they are certainly going to deliver it. Kylie telling us she was happy to help out.
I'm really excited to see everyone. It's
people doing incredible things, so it's good to be here.
I won't let it turn into hate.
The ceremony is not done on a shoestring, with its big performances and 5 £1 million prizes being handed out to innovators and entrepreneurs helping to tackle some of the world's most pressing environmental problems. Sharing the stage with 4 young people from Brazil, it was the finalists that William wanted to be the stars of the night.
I understand that some might feel discouraged in these uncertain times. I understand that there is still so much to be done. But this is no time for complacency, and the optimism I felt in 2020 remains ardent today.
I suspect there probably is a sense of relief from William and his team that they've managed to get to this point in the week without his trip being derailed by any kind of scandal. Yes, Prince Harry has appeared in Canada, but the one thing they really wanted to avoid was any new revelations about his uncle Andrew. They haven't come, which has allowed them that space and peace to really focus on the issues that have mattered to them. That optimistic message and the sense of energy couldn't feel more needed right now, with the pessimism surrounding the UN's climate summit, COP30, due to start today, also in Brazil.
The way that I've always looked at COP and endeavours around climate is, yes, politicians have huge sways. They're setting the ground rules. But as the finalists here prove, they are not the only game in town.
William is set to go to COP, where he's due to speak on behalf of the King and the United Kingdom. Another part of that push to show him as a truly global leader, where other politicians and royals have let people down. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News in Rio.
Now, of course, we're talking about both the Earthshot Prize and COP in that, and our next guest was central to both. She was at the heart of the Paris Climate Accord COP meeting 10 years ago, and she chairs that Earthshot Prize. I'm talking about Cristina Figueres, who's determined to make sure this year's COP in Rio is a success.
Well, a lot's changed in the last decade since, of course, that Paris Agreement. Progress has been pretty slow, but she said that actually decisions about prioritising spending on net zero goals versus things like defence and health are apparently not binary. And
we started by asking her about Prince William's involvement in that Earthshot Prize.
I think one could expect that a Prince of Wales might have to do some things because of his investiture. But the fact is that Prince William is 100% sincere, committed and devoted to using his very unique platform for common good, for restoring the planet. He has been doing this for years. I have had the honor of chairing the Earthshot Prize for 5 years, ever since it started. And I did so because of his commitment. I wouldn't actually spend some of my time, in fact, a lot of my time on Earthshot Prize if I personally were not convinced that he is truly devoted.
Can I talk a little bit more generally about the fight against climate change? Because you, of course, were kind of architect to the Paris Agreement. We've got COP30, which is marking 10 years since that agreement was met. I'm going to be kind of straight. It feels, I think, to many people that, progress is stalling, that you have these big meetings where global leaders pat each other on the back, but nothing actually changes. What is your view? How optimistic or not are you?
I think what is important to understand is that the center of gravity of where progress is happening is shifting. 10 years ago, when we were in Paris, it was very obvious that it was the national governments that needed to be in the lead because they had to agree to a legally binding agreement that provides for the strategic route of decarbonization of the entire world over the next few decades. So they had to be in the lead. That was necessary then. That is no longer necessary now. National governments have done the leadership role that they needed to do. The center of gravity of action, of progress, of possibility, and of opportunity has now shifted to the rest of stakeholders. That is why at COP30...
Have they done the leadership? President Trump's called climate change a con job.
I know it is actually very sad when the head of state of some government doesn't understand or deny science. I mean, what can I say? If you can deny gravity if you wish, but it still acts on you.
I have a different follow-up to your point to say that national governments have already done most of the heavy lifting, which is to ask you whether you think it would be understandable for a government like the UK to look at the significant progress that has been made around carbon emissions in this country and think, do you know what, the finances are tight, there's lots of things we have to spend on, from defence to health services, with a sort of flatlining economy, and we're going to just push back the date to when we will be genuinely net zero, or not be so tied to a set target. If that happened, would that be reasonable or understandable in your eyes?
Well, that is, unfortunately, I think, the consequence of thinking in a binary way, that you either have to do, let me pick up health because you mentioned it, either you have to invest in health or in climate change. The fact is that these two are so intricately linked, and we should really understand that. The more that we decrease pollution, for example, the better human and health is, especially in cities, is going to be. So we should not think of these two things as competing and as being mutually exclusive, but actually mutually supportive.
Is COP really, I guess, worth anything, you know, if the US isn't there, isn't interested, isn't listening?
Well, the fact is that the COP will continue. The United States is the only country that has left. Everyone else is still in the Paris Agreement and continues to decarbonize their economy in different ways, for sure, but they continue the path. If the United States chooses to leave the effort and to curtail the opportunity for their own industry to decarbonize and be competitive in the new economy that is rising irreversibly and unstoppably, then that is to their detriment.
Awful lot, of course, coming up on COP, but we are sticking with our main story today, which is the mistaken release of those two prisoners. We're going to be discussing that with the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick. That coming up in just a couple of minutes' time. I'm sure he'll have a few things to say.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of Tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. Well, 2 prisoners are still at large as we go to air. They were accidentally released this week from Wandsworth Prison. The Justice Secretary, David Lammy, promised to put in place extra checks to stop things like this happening. Well, we can hear now from the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, who joins us now. It's great to have you on the programme. So what's your reaction to these 2 men being released by mistake?
Well, it's a total shambles. You've had, for the second, in fact, the third time now in 2 weeks, criminals being released accidentally from our prisons. And the last time, when a convicted sex offender who was due to be deported had been released accidentally from Chelmsford Prison, David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, said that he was going to put in place the most robust checks ever. Yet what's happened? Another convicted sex offender, illegal migrant, supposedly due for deportation, has been accidentally released, plus a fraudster. And now you've got police forces, like the Met and Surrey Police, wasting precious resources, scouring our country to find these people and get them back into custody. And what did David Lammy do? When he was finally told about this, he didn't come clean and tell the public. We're told, in fact, he bragged at Prime Minister's questions that he went and bought a new suit. He went shopping instead of gripping his department. I think that's a dereliction of duty.
You think it's a dereliction of duty? That's wrong words. What do you think the consequence of that should be then?
Well, I think he has to account for his conduct. He sent a junior minister out onto the media today, like a lamb to the slaughter, to explain. He seems to have disappeared. How can you be the Justice Secretary in the midst of a crisis in your own department and you go out shopping to buy yourself a suit? I've never heard anything like it.
Can I ask if you take your own share of the responsibility for the state of our prisons, right? Because, look, I get there's going to be political point scoring that's going to happen, but this is also a really, really serious issue in the prison estate. I mean, Wandsworth Prison is a good example of this, right? Wandsworth Prison has been a shambles for years, including under the Conservatives. Yes. I remember talking to the inspector who said it should be shut down, and actually the latest report says they are trying to make some progress with the new governor. But do you accept that these are issues that have been stored up for years?
Look, I think the state of the prison service has been unacceptable for a very long time.
Including under the last
Conservative government, yes. The issue we're confronting here, however, is a distinct one, which is that the number of people, criminals, who are being released accidentally from our prisons has increased.
It has increased, but it's
dramatically.
It is part of the same issue, right? This is paperwork rather than a system that is put in place, a modern-day system. It is understaffing.
I'm sure all of that has.
Totally
I agree. I'm sure all of that has contributed to this situation, but over the last 10 years, the number of criminals being released accidentally has averaged 57 a year. Now, I'm not defending that. 57 is 57 too many. But there's been a 130% increase in a single year under Labour.
Why is that? It has also been going up for a while. So the last year, the Conservative government was 115, right? So it has been going up for a while.
It's risen in the last 2 or 3 years, but it's gone up by 130%. I don't know the answer as to what's happened. I can surmise that Labour chose to do an early release scheme that was botched, it was poorly planned, disastrously implemented, and that has created such an administrative burden on the prison service that they're now making these mistakes, not every week or every couple of weeks, as was happening before, completely unacceptable though that was, but on an almost daily basis. And this is endangering the public. And we've got to find an answer to it.
You were talking there about prisoners being released early. We've got the sentencing bill through as well. Police chiefs are warning it could lead to a 6% increase in crime. Are you concerned about that?
I'm deeply concerned. That when the sentencing review came out earlier in the year and the Labour government accepted most of its findings, the NCA, our National Crime Agency, MI5, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, said that it would endanger the public. Now, the Labour government has chosen to proceed with it. They're going to be releasing criminals like thugs who beat people up or domestic abusers, having served only a third of their sentence. And that is going to lead to more crime on our streets, more sexual assaults, more rapes, more assaults, more crime out on the streets, because there'll be more criminals out on the streets. We should be building more prison places, absolutely. We've also got to get the foreign national offenders, of which there are 10,500 in our prisons, out of those prisons, out of our country, so we can lock up more criminals for longer.
Can I ask you something? So PMQs yesterday, it was David Lammy, of course, because Keir Starmer was away. Justice Secretary, the Conservatives obviously had a line about justice. Why weren't you doing it?
I had a family emergency that meant that I couldn't do it, actually.
But you were actually going to do it. It wasn't...
I was asked if I could do it by Kemi, and I couldn't actually on this occasion. But hopefully there'll be another opportunity in the future. And I thought James Cartlett did a great job.
That does make sense.
He asked the question, David Lammy wasn't there to answer it.
Final question. Maccabi Tel Aviv, the Israeli football team, of course, their fans aren't watching the match later today. There is going to be an increased police presence as well. The boss has been talking to Sky News today, who was talking about, lies, hatred shared online about the fans of the club, although he did say there was work to eliminate racism. What's your take on what's going on? Was it the right call?
I think it was a really big mistake by the West Midlands Police and the authorities there to essentially say that they were not able to police a football match in our country and to keep Israeli citizens, British Jews who might happen to support this team safe in a part of Birmingham. That is a stain, really, on our country. There should be no no-go areas for foreign citizens or for people of certain religions in any part of our country. And when this was made public, the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, they all said they were aghast and they were going to do everything in their power to stop it from happening. And, in fact, they failed, haven't they? That's the truth. No fans will be present. This part of Birmingham is now going to be known to many people in our country as somewhere that they shouldn't feel safe to walk the streets. And that's wrong. It's got to change.
Thank you very much for being on the programme.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you there. Robert Jenrick there, the Shadow Justice Secretary. Thank you.
We've got lots more still to come. After the break, we're going to be talking about a new film, Nuremberg, which traces the story of trying to hold the Nazis to account after the end of World War II. We'll be talking to the producer and director of that movie. Welcome back. A reminder of the top stories. 2 men are still on the run this morning after they were mistakenly released from a South London prison. The men are Brahim Kador Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian and registered sex offender, and 35-year-old William Smith. Both were released from HMP Wandsworth.
The boss of Israeli football team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, has denounced what he calls falsehoods being shared about the team's fans. Speaking to Sky News, Jack Angelides revealed the club hasn't been given a specific reason for being banned, the sport has been banned from tonight's Europa League match with Aston Villa. But he did say there was work to do to eradicate racism. Prince William has praised environmental innovators as the world's true action heroes in a speech for his Earthshot Prize in Rio de Janeiro. In the annual ceremony, the future king said there's no time for complacency. Now, the Nuremberg trials, I mean, they gripped Europe. They've been one of those extraordinary historical events when they happened after the war, and a devastated continent, of course, want to see justice brought to the Nazis that killed millions of people. Those trials are once again being brought to life in a Sky original movie, Nuremberg. Russell Crowe leads an all-star cast in a thriller set in the shadow of those Nazi horrors.
Dr. Kelly, you are standing inside a military prison. It currently houses what's left of the Nazi high command. Your job is to evaluate caring in the others.
Sir, this might be a little bit beyond my area of expertise. Doctor, no man has ever beaten me. Very sure of yourself.
And we're delighted to say we're joined by the director and the producer, James Vanderbilt. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And there's been so many World War II movies down the years. Yeah. I've never seen one that tackles this part, which is after the war had ended, how did the West hold those surviving senior members of the Nazi ranks to an account? And in that sense, it's got an aspect of A Few Good Men about it. It's certainly not just stuck in one courtroom throughout, but it's that legal, judicial approach to hold them to account.
Yes, no, it was a fascinating story. I came to it. Jack L. High wrote a book called The Nazi and the Psychiatrist, and I read his book proposal for it 13 years ago. It was only 5 or 6 pages, and it was the quickest I said yes to anything in my life, because I'd never sort of read this story. I'd heard about the Nuremberg trials, obviously studied them in school, but this story about a psychiatrist, Rami Malek's character, who's brought in to evaluate the entire Nazi high command to see if they're fit to stand trial, and all of the work that went into putting the trials on, which many people didn't want to do. Many of the governments just wanted to kill the Nazis. There was a standing order from Churchill and Roosevelt that they were to be executed 48 hours after their arrest. And the Justice Jackson, Michael Shannon's character, said, no, we can't do that. We have to put together an international coalition and put these men on trial for their crimes.
What does that mean, fit to stand trial? Just talk to me about that.
Just sort of psychologically evaluate them to see sort of their abilities, what they're looking for. But then Kelly finds himself asked to channel information to the prosecution as well. So he's caught between his duties as a doctor and his oaths, but also his duties to his country.
Yeah, so interesting.
And you've obviously got an amazing cast to draw on. It's one of those movies where you actually wonder who is the lead. Is it Rami Malek, the psychiatrist, or is it Russell Crowe? What's your take on that?
I think it's almost a three-hander too. It started. We talked a lot about Silence of the Lambs. You know, sort of someone coming into a cell and sitting with a monster and trying to figure out who they are and what they want. So I think it's both of them, and they do an incredible job. And then Michael Shannon as the lead prosecutor too. So the movie sort of moves from character to character to character, so that wherever the most interesting events go, the film goes.
How difficult is it doing a film about something that still has such emotional resonance for people? Because, you know, the Nazism, what happened across Europe, you know, we're still, I don't think, come to terms with it, right? And, you know, some of the characters that we're talking about, the guys who stood trial, like you say, you used the word monsters, but that is how people, I guess, still see them. So many people do see them. How did you kind of weave that into a film?
I mean, I think we all sort of felt the weight of responsibility in terms of portraying these events. You know, we took that very, very seriously, but we also wanted to show all of these characters as three-dimensional and human, you know, and it's a lot, you know, the thing about Hermann Goering that's amazing was he was considered incredibly charming and magnetic and seductive. And so having someone like Russell Crowe able to play that, so it's not just, Darth Vader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the whole point. You know,
Exactly.
if we're going to truly grapple with history, we have to see these people as humans,
Yes.
right? As well.
Yes, which I think is more terrifying.
Yeah, it's true.
And just finally, I mean, I should probably know this from the history, but how close were we to all of these people just being executed, and therefore there not being that legal process where justice was served through a trial? Was that touch and go?
It was we were very close to just doing it.
Yeah.
It was really the work of Robert Jackson and the British lawyers David Maxwell Fyfe, Sir David Maxwell Fyfe, who were able to convince the world leaders that they had to do it, and also that it had to be an international coalition. It wasn't just the U.S. It had to be Britain. It had to be the French. It had to be the Russians, who nobody was really getting along with at that point because it was the beginning of the Cold War.
Well, it sounds fantastic, James. We look forward to seeing it. It's out on the 14th of November?
14th of November.
And James Vanderbilt there, the producer and director of Nuremberg, a Sky original movie. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
I'm really looking forward to watching this one. I have to say, I find this whole period absolutely fascinating. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, after years of delays and some pretty troubling technical issues, we should say, the UK's next generation of armoured vehicles are about to be delivered.
The Ajax programmes cost over £5 billion, and our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, has been out to test them. That's pretty epic, Deborah.
Deborah, what
By the way,
happened?
did I get, is it Ajax or Ajax?
No, you got it right. It's
Got it right,
Ajax.
Ajax.
It is Ajax.
So you're
yeah.
a tank expert. You've been driving a tank.
Oh, you just said the sacrilege word tank.
Is
The
it not a
soldiers,
tank?
the
Armoured
army
vehicle?
say it's a medium weight, light armoured, medium weight armoured fighting vehicle. But let's face it, it looks like a
look at
tank.
this.
Oh, there's me getting onto the thing.
I'm sorry, that looks like a tank to me.
And it's 40 tons, so it is as heavy as a Russian tank. But it's very expensive. Like each one of these is costing around £10 million. And there has to be a question about how survivable it would be on a modern battlefield, given the prevalence of very cheap drones. But the army's very excited.
I'm interested in this because we actually had John Sparks on earlier this week talking about the drones that they were using in Ukraine and the kind of new generation of modern warfare, which is like kind of video games almost. And you look at this, which looks like, if I'm being completely honest, like a completely different era. How does that match up?
There's obviously a range of different capabilities on the battlefield, and the army says that this is a next generation, the best of its kind fighting vehicle that's so much more than just a tracked vehicle on tracks. It's got sensors, it's got cameras, it can spot a target 8 kilometres away. But when I asked, has it got electronic countermeasures, which is absolutely critical in Ukraine, they said not yet. But this is an initial operating capability. And I did actually speak to Luke Pollard, who is our procurement minister, and he was really bigging up the capability.
We now have a next generation capability being adopted by the British Army with potential to export it to our allies that keeps us safe and will increase the lethality and deterrent capability of NATO. So it's a really important milestone day today, but to see the vehicle that our troops will be using, especially after all the problems that it may have had in the past, we've put those to bed now, we've addressed them, we've learnt those lessons.
So what was it like, Deborah, inside and did you actually drive it? I guess probably not.
Sadly, they did not let me drive it.
but
I popped out the turret and,
what's it like inside a tank?
Inside the medium-weight armoured
Ajax.
fighting vehicle.
Pronounced Ajax.
Yeah.
By the way, got that right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it's a tank. Look at it. We can say that.
The minister
We're going to get so many complaints.
The minister talked about problems, and on a serious note, that this vehicle has taken, it's 8 years late to meet this milestone of in just initial operating capability. It means we can send 27 of them, or of a pool of 50 on operations potentially to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. But we're getting 589 of them. But there has been real serious problems with the noise and the vibrations coming from the vehicle that actually has left at least 17 soldiers needing treatment for hearing loss. There are, there's more than 300 that have actually had, there's lawyers sort of representing them, wondering whether they've got problems. The minister said that the issues are behind us, but I can say, having driven around in it yesterday, armoured vehicles are noisy, but given that this is supposed to be a reconnaissance stealthy vehicle, it's very loud. You have to have extra layers of protection on your ears. And to be in that for long periods of time, potentially, is problematic. But everyone will say that tanks are noisy, right? Sorry, I said it. Tanks.
Yeah, exactly. See? Well, what's the actual name? Medium?
It's a medium-weight armoured fighting vehicle.
There we go.
There you go.
I'm going to stick with tank. Deb, thanks so much. That was awesome. Really great to see it, and it'd be interesting to see if it kind of makes it properly with these problems.
8 years late. We are going to go to events in Brazil now because the Prime Minister will pitch the UK as a world leader on climate action at the UN COP30 summit there. He's been hailing a series of new investment deals for clean power. Well, we can talk now to Sky Science and Technology editor Tom Clark, who is in Brazil for us. Tom, what's going on?
Morning. Well, what's going on? We're going to find out. We've got more than 2 weeks of a climate summit to get through, which, as you say, the Prime Minister's arriving here in Belém today. There's another day of the leaders sort of coming together, then a nice weekend break, and then, yes, 2 weeks of climate talks. We're going to try and sort out, try to get the world back on track to reduce emissions and therefore global warming. As you were hearing in your interview with Cristiana Figueres earlier, you know, it's not going brilliantly, but there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic.
It's 2 weeks long, Tom. How long are the biggest names there, for example? The Prime Minister obviously is there, and are fellow world leaders and leaders of government also represented, or is the Prime Minister more senior than some of the people that's being sent from other countries?
It varies, is the honest answer, but the leaders usually attend at the beginning, a way of kind of chivvying everyone along, warming up the crowd, making their intentions felt. I think it is significant this summit, we're not having a large array of world leaders. As we understand it, President Xi of China won't be here. Vladimir Putin never comes. Narendra Modi, the PM of India, isn't expected to come either. Those are the world's the most notable absences of all. I've been talking about it so much for the last few weeks, I forgot even to mention it. Donald Trump isn't here. Of course, he's promised to get the US out of the whole climate process. Those are the world's biggest polluters not represented. But the process is always adapted and flexed to that. Senior ministers are nearly always in attendance at these events. Ed Miliband's the one who represents the UK government. So the heads of state, it's more for sort of just showing enthusiasm. And I think that's why Keir Starmer's visit is significant, because it's showing the UK, despite all of the problems that they're having back home, trying to square the net zero circle in terms of bills for customers, they're still sticking very much to trying to show leadership and encourage other people to join that race globally, which is ultimately the direction of travel.
Tom Clark, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, particularly bright and early. Do you know what, this week we've been lucky enough to see some pretty great Brazilian backdrops.
That was one of them, wasn't it?
It was a bit more hazy.
Yeah, it's quite nice though, kind of entering the day, early morning.
It was
nice.
It was a great backdrop, as was Rhiannon's earlier in the week. Very, very good to have them both with us.
Oh, there we go. We come back just to have a little look at the screen. I love it.
We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the new Collins Dictionary Word of the Year with the man that writes the dictionary. What's his title? I should find this out. Anyway, with someone from Collins Dictionary, and we're going to be discussing it coming up next.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Traveling is not just about the destination. It's also about how you get there. Fly Emirates, fly better. Fly Emirates, fly better. Thank you.
Got a bit of breaking news to bring you now because we've had some new statistics about the number of referrals to the government's anti-extremism scheme Prevent, and they have gone up a lot. There were a record 8,778 referrals, which is up 27% on the previous year. Now, this was expected, I should say. They said that part of the reason for that surge is in the wake of the appalling Southport murders we saw in 2024. There have been more people referred to the scheme. Axel Rudakabana, of course, was referred 3 times to the scheme, Prevent, before he carried out those attacks. But what we have seen, though, Wilf, is the head of counter-terrorism policing, Lawrence Taylor, sounding a bit of a warning about this rise in referrals because he's saying there just isn't the capacity to deal with them all. And what we're seeing is people who don't necessarily have a fixed ideology, so not a terrorist in the usual sense perhaps, but may have mental health issues, but are still, red flagged for people being referred. And there are some concerns about whether the system, and Prevent in particular, of course, can actually deal with this rise in cases.
And the stats, as we said, the headline stats, 8,778, it's up 27%, and the majority of those referrals went on to be adopted as a channel case for extreme right-wing concerns. 612 of the 1,464 channel cases specified. Some more details available, and we're going to get those for you on the Sky News website. But the headline number is 8,778, up 27%.
And this is the thing as well, just looking at these details, the biggest category of all was the no ideology identified. So that was the largest proportion of referrals, 56%. And I guess this goes back to what the head of counter-terrorism policing was saying, that we're seeing an increase in people who don't have a specific ideology, such as Islamic extremism or whatever it is, being referred to Prevent. Question marks coming about how fit that programme is for dealing with the rise in cases.
Now, we thankfully are pivoting to a more upbeat story next. How good is your Gen Alpha lingo? Ours, we've already found out, not particularly good. But we're delighted to say we're joined now by Samantha Ederle, who's from Collins Dictionary, and they've got their new Word of the Year and all of the runners-up as well, which we're going to be able to talk about to Word of the Year. So we've looked through this quite a lot. I honestly don't know any of these words or terms, which is rather depressing. So what is, drum roll please, the new Word of the Year?
Our word of the year for 2025 is vibe coding, which is about using AI to create a website or an app without having any software engineering knowledge or any programming knowledge. So anyone can do it.
So is that where the vibe part of it comes from, that you're kind of just getting in with something even if you've not trained as a...
Exactly.
You haven't taken that new A-level, I guess.
Yes, you don't need any qualifications. That's the sort of principle behind it. Anyone can do it. Although, obviously, as with a lot of AI output, you do need somebody to check it. But companies are actually incorporating vibe coding now as part of their software development process. And it was a term that was coined by the ex-head of AI from Tesla and software lead engineer at ChatGPT, so he should know what we're talking about.
How do you come up with the Word of the Year? How do you decide it?
So our lexicographers work to analyse word usage
what word
through the
experts
year.
are these?
Word
Yeah, yeah.
experts, absolutely. We have a huge database, 24 billion words in the Collins Dictionary database. So they analyse how those words are being used across social media, across traditional media, print and online. And we look at words that are either new, like vibe coding, or have come to real prominence during the year.
And this is different from adding words or terms to the dictionary, or these all also new additions? Is the
These
word
have all been added as well to the online
So
dictionary.
how do you decide how many to add each year? And what's like the cut-off for people are using this new term or word, but it doesn't qualify to be added?
So there isn't a limit on the number of words. It's as many as we feel need to be, but it needs to be a word that's being used you can see it being used in a consistent way so that we can, define it properly. So, for instance, 6-7, which lots of people are talking about.
I want to talk about this one.
It's not in, we talked about that, but actually it doesn't mean anything. It's just like a meme that's kind of run wild and kids love saying it in classroms to annoy teachers.
Yeah,
so that's not in the dictionary.
So 6-7, because I've had this before, happened to me when I was in the cinema, like people just yelling 6-7, and then you kind of look into it and it's this whole thing where, as you say, people are just saying it in class and say, but the whole point of it is that it's meaningless, right?
Essentially meaningless, yes. I think it came from a rap song and then it was used in a lot of videos around a baseball player or basketball player, I think, who's 6'7", and then it just became a thing. So
it is to wind people like me up to wonder what it means.
I think so.
It's worked.
I think that's literally the point.
It's worked. I still don't quite get to the bottom of it.
They're going to love the fact you guys are talking about
there is no bottom, that's the thing.
They'll be enjoying that.
So wait, that is in the dictionary?
It's not, because
not.
You can't define it. It doesn't actually mean anything.
So it can never be word of the year. So the kids are going to miss out on that.
Aura farming. What's aura farming?
So aura farming is kind of a collision of gaming culture with sort of TikToker activity. So in gaming culture, you farm to kind of gain points, or currency or whatever. Farming is working, and then aura points from a sort of social media TikTok point of view is all about how cool you are. So aura farming is deliberately making yourself cool.
I think I summarised that quite well earlier, didn't I?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
you were good.
I mean, I had to look it up.
I'm not sure how our aura farming has gone right now, though, admitting that we basically don't know the meaning of any of these new cool words. That's the only problem.
Well, luckily, as well as trying to build online following, we also have a linear TV show, so we're hedged on that regard. Do you ever add old words? All of these are very new terms that we're having to learn about. Are there any words that, for some reason, come from decades past that weren't added previously, or not?
Actually, this year we've added clanker, which has actually been around for about 20 years, but has had this huge surge in usage this year. Over 3,000% up on previous years.
What's a clanker?
Clanker is a term that's used in a derogatory way, usually about a robot or AI or something, kind of technology that's annoyed people. So the little food delivery robots in LA that people kind of kick over, that's the sort of thing that people use the term clanker
Camera 22
around,
is a clanker.
Oh, here we go.
Sorry, that was a really inside joke.
That was an in-joke.
I know. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Really fascinating.
Great to have you.
The Collins word of the year, vibe code. It's actually not. It's a term, really, than the word, isn't it?
It's a compound noun. It's 2 words.
Oh, I like that.
Check out the lexicographer in the room. That's very impressive.
Samantha Erdley, thanks so much for joining us.
Lots of news.
Compound noun.
There we go. An awful lot of news coming up, of course, in the next hour. We're going to be updating you on the manhunt that is ongoing. We've got, of course, the 2 people who were released by mistake from Wandsworth jail. 6-day head start they were given on the police. So, of course, that manhunt going underway. And this came in just 2 days after the government said that they were introducing new tough checks in prisons in order to try and stop this kind of thing happening.
It's going to be really interesting as well when the PM comes back, because obviously he's in Brazil for COP. He's missed out on a lot of this pressure and hasn't been seen that much as well earlier in the week when we heard from Rachel Reeves as well. So you feel like he's going to come back with a bit of a bump early next week with a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, and also questions about when the Prime Minister was actually told about this and whether or not he's responded as well. That is Wandsworth Prison that you're looking at now on your screens, which of course is the site where those 2 prisoners were mistakenly freed from jail. More coming up with Gareth, who's up in just a few moments' time. Thanks for joining us on our first week.